Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started with our meeting, I would just like to, on behalf of the City of Killeen and Council, we'd like to give our condolences to General Pete Taylor and family and his loss, and also to our November 5th, 2009 family members that we had a memorial today, the tragedy that happened at Fort Hood on that day. I will now call the meeting to order. Let the record show that all council members are present. Mr. Don Smith, you will be doing prayer, and the Pledge of Allegiance is done by me.
Let's stand and bow our heads. Lord, thank you for all you do for us. We owe you so much. Lord, as we get older, we can look back on our lives and see all the good things and the bad things we have done. We are constantly changing. While we can constantly change, there's one thing that never changes. That's Jesus' love for us. He is always there to help us. As we go about our worldly tasks, we need to live the type of life that Jesus would want us to do. Let's treat each other the same way Jesus treats us. Jesus, thank you for the veterans that we have available. Look after them, especially look after the families of veterans that have made this supreme sacrifice. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Now we will have the approval of the agenda. Okay. Oh, that's not working. Oh, Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda.
Councilmember Boyd.
Second.
All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Seven to 0. We will now have presentations. Council, you have 3 times to speak each for 3 minutes. Madam Secretary.
PR 24023, Hill Country Transit District Update.
Thank you. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Did you say I have 3 minutes?
Oh, not you, sir. Not you, sir. It's the council.
I'm going to speak like an auctioneer.
Yes, sir. You got 3.
All right. Well, thank you again for allowing us and putting us on the agenda to speak. The last time I was here, we were talking about this new service that we were going to launch, and we launched it on September 3rd. What I'd like to do is walk you through, give you some context of kind of where we were, why we made the changes that we made, just from a historical perspective, then talk about some of the challenges that you always have when you implement something new, and then kind of discuss where we're heading next. And we're also asking for consideration from the council to approve an interlocal agreement for 2025 fiscal year moving forward. So just to provide some context, we decided to launch the service, and there was also a request from several council members to consider extending the service south. And I think at the time we came to agreement that we needed to launch the system, and then when you launch a new service like this, there's a lot of data that starts coming through, travel patterns, you start recognizing where people are trying to go. And we wanted to make sure that we launched it first and then took a couple of months to look at the data. And so I'll kind of wrap up of where we go next. But just to remind council of where we were, Hill Country Transit District about 3 years ago hired an independent consultant to look at our existing service. And I provided a lot of analytical data over a 11 to 12 year time frame that kind of showed a downturn in ridership. There was a lot of feedback that came from stakeholders from the consultant. I'm not going to read all of them here, but just access to fixed route service. In many cases, it was too far away. There was the perception of empty buses that didn't necessarily go where people needed to go. The city continues to grow, and the fixed route service really didn't stay. Didn't grow with it and didn't change. And so there was a request by our board to come in and do a complete reevaluation and assessment. We did that. And so, I'll talk a little bit about that. Again, from a context perspective, when you looked at the fixed route bus efficiency, the red line is typically where transit planners, that's kind of the standard. If you're left of that red line, it typically means that your passengers per hour, and that's what these bars show, is like how many passengers we're actually carrying on a bus at any given time in a particular hour. And you can see that the majority of our fixed routes were actually trending way below the national average, with only 2 routes that were carrying about 12 people. I'm here to say that just in 2 months, and we've been running this bus service for 24 years, in 2 months, we're already carrying over 12 passengers per hour on the microtransit service. The beauty of that is, if you recall, our bus routes used to run only 1 hour frequency, and they ran in only one direction. The average wait time for people now is less than 10 minutes. And so you can just see and you're not having to walk to a bus stop. The vehicles will come to you, pick you up, and take you where you need to go. Now, this is a tectonic shift in how people move about. And so I want to respect the fact that what we deployed is nothing shy of phenomenal. We completely changed 5 cities, all the routes in 5 cities. We implemented new software. We had to train the workforce, hire new employees, do a lot of travel training, get people used to it, integrate new software. We've asked the software company to do things that, frankly, have not been done anywhere in the country. And they're a great software company, but they've had a few glitches. But we're making great progress. So we're already across that red line and expect, and typically what you'll see is measured growth in the first quarter, second quarter, and then accelerated growth in the second half of the first year. So my expectation is that we're going to far exceed where we're going. The other important thing, if you notice down in orange, we also had what we call special transit services. That's our paratransit service, and also non-emergency medical. We combined those, all of those different services that were overlaid, but they weren't necessarily efficient. We combined all of that into one service, and things seem to be working extremely well. So Killeen's already operating over 12 passengers per hour. Temple is about 9, and we continue to see great progress. Just to give you an idea, the Cavazos Connector, which has been a fantastic service. When we launched it, we asked the high command, what is your version or vision of success? And they said, we can carry 30,000 trips in a year, we'll be happy. Well, we're projecting carry about 225 to 250,000 trips in our first year. I don't know that we'll do that citywide because of the concentration of people there. But just to give you some comparisons in the first 2 months, so from March 2nd to April 30th at Fort Cab, we carried 33,000, almost 33.5 riders. The median wait time was 6 minutes. You can see all the numbers here. I want to show you the one on the bottom, the average rider review. Now that is from a kind of 1-star to 5-star. Are you happy with the system or you're not? And they can also provide immediate feedback to us so we can communicate with these customers. We can reach out to them. 90%, 97%, that's really unheard of typically in the transit arena. And then, looking over at the urban side, in comparisons, we've already carried almost 39,000 passengers, 10-minute wait time, Average ride time is 18 minutes. I mean, if you combine those two, it's half the time you'd have to wait on a bus. And then the regular ride time on a bus would have been at least 30 to 40 minutes. The average trip distance is just under 5 miles. Now, typically what you want to see with this type of service is the length of the trips being about 6 miles or less. So this is a good sign. It also kind of tilts toward we can probably open up and expand the service. But as you expand it, there's some trade-offs that we'll talk about in a little bit. Typically, the cities, the way the cities are laid out will impact on-time performance. You're also impacted pretty significantly around the hours of 2 to 4 p.m. because there's a lot of folks coming off of the base and it creates a lot of traffic congestion in town. But we are continuing to look at that and figure out how to improve things. You'll also notice a high cancellation rate. That's because people have not gotten used to the fact of letting the system do what it's supposed to. Once people book a trip, they think, I'm sure we've all done it. If you're put on hold, sometimes you hang up and you think, well, I'll hang up and get an operator faster. You really don't. You just wind up getting further in the queue. So what we're seeing is a lot of people booking a trip and then they'll try to book another one, try to book another one, try to book another one to see if they can get one faster. But over time, they'll stop doing that. So this is typical of what you would see when you implement a new system. Just some rider statistics. You can see the trend line is moving in the right direction. Orange is the urban system. Fort Cav is in blue. We did put a little box here that said that we had a software vendor outage. This was a human error. They uploaded a corrupt file. We don't love when this stuff happens, but we expect it to happen. The more complex the system, typically the chances are that you'll have an outage or two. I have not been associated with a deployment where we haven't had some minor disruptions in service. This was not a minor one. This was a couple of hours. But even so, we were able to recover, and the customer satisfaction on that date really wasn't impacted very much. Part of the reason is because people aren't sitting at a stop and they have information as to what's happening typically. So you can see we rebounded very quickly on that one day. Some of the challenges that we had in full transparency that we've already corrected. My apologies, I went past this. We've had some call center complaints again in the first couple of months. Everybody's trying to learn how to use the system. Our call center has done a great job. I've also noticed that we have about a 40% call-in, which is not typical. You would see less than that. I think a lot of that has to do with the demographics of our current ridership. But as people get trained, that call volume should change and come down. That's very typical of what we'd see. One of the things of the way we've deployed our system in collaboration with Uber is when you have staffing shortages, typically you can't put service on the street. But we've leveraged the design of our integration with Uber to do two things. Is when we have call outs or just a lack of operators, we're able to insert Uber. We also use them as overflow. So if the customer expectation is that you're going to wait 30 minutes, if it gets beyond that, we can also dispatch a vehicle so that they're not inconvenienced and missing appointments or jobs or whatever the case may be. So that's working out really well. We've been tweaking the design. It's been working well. The software disruption I mentioned already. We've worked with our vendor already to improve processes. And then one of the big things that we tend to do when we deploy a system is we watch people's travel patterns and we listen to the customer service reps. And so we're meeting daily to get feedback, and we actually will call directly to the person that's having issues. We learn things from that customer interaction and experience and how to design and improve the system, and we've been doing so. So one of the things we did is we've eliminated some of these inner city zones which are causing transfers, with the average trip distance only being about 5 miles or less. It's a lot more convenient if we can do a single trip ride. So what we've done is we've simplified the design. And if you're going out of the city, then you'll transfer to our commuter service. If you're within the city, We've redesigned the system to make it easier. And these are things that we can do literally on the fly. So another great advantage of having the technical software capabilities and a staff that's trained. So you can see now what the service area map looks like. Before, Killeen and blue had 4 quadrants. Now it's just one big blue quadrant. And so we've also eliminated some of the hubs along the blue route to make it more efficient. So we try to have one transfer hub to get on the connector. And with the concept of if you're leaving the city, you get on the regional connector, then it's just easier to get moved over to 1 or 2 transfer hubs in your city to make that transition. That blue line represents the regional connector, and it's running on a 30-minute frequency, so high availability, high access across the entire region. We are seeing people use all the services, and I think it's just going to get better and better as we start focusing on away from deployment to actually marketing and promoting the system and making people aware of how easy it is to use. Just a few more slides here. So this is interesting data, and we can look at this, and we do every day. This is a heat map, and it kind of shows where the highest trip demand is. And just to give you an idea, just below Killeen, that's downtown Killeen. There's some of the highest trafficked areas are Fort Hood dialysis downtown. There's several housing areas. There's Harker Heights Walmart. There's a Lions Club. There's a Lowe's Boulevard where Walmart is, HEB, Killeen Walmart, and Medical Health at Advent Health are some of the larger trip generators. We've also just shown you some of the conceptually, not conceptually, these are actual heat maps of where folks are focused in Temple as well as Fort Cav. Of course, Fort Cav is everywhere. People are going everywhere. Temple is more concentrated in downtown and toward the south portion of Temple. We're pretty much we cover the entire loop, inside the loop, and a little bit outside on the south, and that's based on population density. But I wanted to show that there's similarities in that we're not covering the entire city of Temple. We're only covering what we think is the largest population demand. And so as we kind of move to discussing expansion opportunities, this is what we see. There's 2 options, expanding the service down to Stagecoach and then expanding down to Chaparral. The reason we didn't do it initially is because when you look from a satellite view, there just wasn't as many rooftops, so you don't have as much population density. And again, the further you're traveling, the further the distance, the less we can respond quickly to other trip demands. So we want to be effective, and we want to have access, but we also want to have speed and make sure the system is available. When I took a look at the trip patterns and we looked at that area, there is an option that we can consider. I'd have to bring it to our board, make sure the board's comfortable with it, and certainly we're looking for input. It's not agendized as an action item, but we are looking at these 2 separate additions. The fact that there's probably not as much density also means that there may not be as much demand, but for equity perspective, we want to make sure that everybody, we're not necessarily covering every inch of the city, but we think by these 2 additions, we could cover the majority of the city. Now, just things to consider is when we look at that expansion of A and or B, it provides better equity and access to the southern portion of Killeen. But once you put it out there, it's hard to roll it back. So we're just going to have to look at these things. We're not making a consultative recommendation here, but these are things that you as city council members want to think about. Is the wait times could go up, your travel times could go up, on-time performance could go down a little bit, which would impact customer satisfaction. Your travel distance, mileage, and the further you go, more maintenance costs. We can wind up in a situation where demand exceeds our capacity, And when that happens, it just means that our wait times go up. So the whole customer satisfaction and how long you're having to wait for a ride could be impacted. Now, the beauty of it is, again, if we start getting too much demand, we can offload some of that to Uber. And the beauty of doing that, and you might ask, well, why not do everything Uber? Well, if you can't do that from a federal perspective and still draw down federal and state dollars, it has to be complementary to transit that you're providing. And also, Uber is not a end-all be-all. And I say Uber, it can be Uber, Lyft, or any third-party TNC. But these are self-proprietors. They can choose to, if you get somebody that's not having a great day and they have a bad trip experience, the next time that operator gets a request to pick them up, they can choose to not pick them up, and there's nothing you can do about that. And so that's not the kind of service that we want to provide. We also need to make sure that it's complementary to our fixed routes so that we can continue to reap the benefits of using federal and state funding. But it is complementary, so we can use it's a wonderful asset because you can use it to augment your staff. So if we have somebody out, it'll help reduce temporary demand. And these TNCs, you deliver a trip when a trip is needed. You're not staffing it all the time. And so we have a great balance. I would say the majority of our folks are employed, they're trained, they're managed. But when we need to make sure that we're meeting the customer's expectation, we can meter that and throttle it the way we need to. So these are, again, our considerations. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. But I would say overall, I've deployed many of these systems across the country and continue to do so. This one, for the size and the complexity of what we've deployed, it's doing a great job. I'm just really excited about the future and hitting our ridership performance standards. But from all other perspectives, in less than 2 months, the massive change has really, I think, gone extremely well. Now, it doesn't mean it's been perfect. It does mean we've had some customers that have had concerns or they can't figure out how to book a trip. They have the app. They can call our customer service. There's a web portal. There's all kinds of ways they can use the system. And I'll just add one final thing and then request input. Is the COG and K-Tempo just had their regional conference last week, and a lot of social service agencies are there and non-emergency medical providers, and they do a great job of going around the room and collecting information. We had a lot of staff there, and I have to tell you that there was overwhelming positive support from all the social services about how the service is. They said it was a game changer. They really like it, and they expect great things in the future. We're going to try to set up a quarterly roundtable with United Way and many of these different services just to continue to have transparent communication to figure out how to help more people in your communities. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. My question is not about what you have on your slides. For an option, something to think about in the near future, the East Gate coming off Rancier for Cavazos. Since we're providing a service anyway for Cavazos and also the city of Killeen to take under consideration for the young soldiers that may not have a vehicle or family members during a deployment that may want to come to some of our events on Friday or Saturday on the weekend, and also just to get away and come into Killeen to just go downtown or just, go to the mall or some kind of way to see can we connect from that East Gate on Rancier, which will be the closest route, to a bus in Killeen picking them up to allow them, especially on the weekend, the opportunity to celebrate, especially with our downtown events that we have. That's something I would like for you to consider, an option. I know you have Plan A and Plan B, and it's great to have it in Chaparral and Stagecoach, but it's cost effective to me with Fort Cavazos being so close to us in that East Gate on Rancier to start there before we try to go out further, because what would happen, as you stated, it would cost travel time, it would cost maintenance fee, and also mileage, which we know our cost, the city, will have to go up to meet those obligations. So I have talked to the General Admiral and the Garrison Commander and other members of Fort Cavazos, and we're all on the same sheet of music about having that avenue to open up for the soldiers on Fort Cavazos and family members. That's just something to think about. And with that being said, once again, thank you for your presentation. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again for the presentation. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was you said the average ride is, around 5 or 6 miles. What is the average cost to the consumer for that ride?
The fares are $2 within the city. If they go outside of, let me qualify that. It's within the urbanized area, so Killeen, Temple, Copperas Cove. If they go to the Temple UZA, it's $4 because they're using the regional connector. There's also there's half fares if you qualify, if you're elderly, disabled, veterans. So there's a whole host of discounted programs that you can purchase. The other thing that we have is weekly, monthly passes, so that are also discounted. So the average fare cost is expected to be around $2 per trip.
Okay. Well, that answers my question, and pretty much my assumption before asking that question is, all the feedback that I've received from the residents of Killeen that I've spoken with has all been positive, as you mentioned earlier. But some of them who hadn't used the service yet, that was one of the dominating comments that I received was like, well, why would I take this when I could just call Uber myself? And my guess was the cost is going to be significantly cheaper than calling Uber directly, and I think you just confirmed that. So.
Yes, the other advantage, and this is why marketing community outreach is important. The transit district has not historically invested in that, but it's super critical and something that I'm talking to our board about to get more public awareness and education. So our system, when you request a trip, it'll look for the most effective and efficient way to get you to where you need to go in a shared ride system. It's not Uber, right? But if we need, and even with Uber, you have to opt in because there might be somebody else that they pick up on the way. So what we're able to do with the system, because of our federal and state money and because we're also transit providers, is we can provide that trip for $2 even on Uber. So if you want to take your Uber trip for 6, 7, 8 miles, it's probably going to cost you about $10 to $12, maybe $13, and you have surge pricing that can also get you if you're not careful. If you take that trip through us, because it's part of our transit network, it costs you a lot less. Now, why would we do that? Well, because to have a full-time employee in a vehicle, we're expending that cost regardless. But when somebody needs a quick trip and we can't provide it, or a trip outside of our parameters and we can't provide it, rather than having an incremental person, which will cost you tens of thousands of dollars a year, we can benefit by doing that one trip for maybe $10. And so the net cost is $8 to the transit district. And we keep an eye on how much Uber we're using across the months. And then it allows us to figure out how to manage our workforce better and make us more efficient, more cost effective.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, I was not completely sold at first on the when you first presented it about a year ago, moving to this. And then back in, I know at K-Temple, I mentioned some of the complaints. And I've been telling people, give it 30 days. And sure enough, in 30 days, those complaints turned into, oh, I got it now.
Great.
Because a lot of times it was, they didn't understand the use of the system. And I think you brought up about fixing the call center both at this meeting and the K-Tempo meeting. That was some issues. And then there are some folks that just because they're against it will call and complain and just to complain. But I applaud how you guys have pushed this out.
Thank you.
And thanks for looking at, and I agree with the mayor, looking at that connector to bring soldiers into, but also I still, we do have some low-income individuals that are south side of the city, and that's why I brought it up about the possibility. And I know it's going to be a cost eventually, but sometimes it's a good thing when you have to have more buses so people get around and there's less cars on the road.
Well, thank you for that feedback. Let me make two comments. One is, I won't say that I love complaints, but I like hearing about people's issues because it gives us an opportunity to work directly with them. As people find out who I am, where I'm working, not that I'm anybody, but just the fact that, oh, you're the hop guy. Well, let me tell you, I had an issue with my phone, and I'm literally sitting there on a couch with somebody, through the settings trying to figure out how to get their phone done and working. Staff has been phenomenal. If we can get a phone number or name of somebody, they reach out and we're going to fix it one person at a time. Every trip, every person in your city to us is important because they represent a lot of opportunity for us to improve the quality of life in this region. So thank you for that feedback and the appreciation because I know that people come to you as well and ask for your help. And it's important that we all continue to communicate with each other to make sure that we're doing the very best we can.
And you may not have this information. As we tackle this issue of grocery store on the north side of Killeen, are you seeing a lot of trips from that area to grocery stores to make sure that folks still have at least access? And I know I'm not sure who does your social media, but may need to, for the younger ones that actually use it more than me, obviously.
It's a need. It's a need that we have in the organization. But that's one of the things we're looking at is the most frequented areas, and they tend to be HEB. They tend to be the grocery stores, and I know that's been a challenge for the city to make sure that we have equal access to food and grocery stores and other amenities in all parts of the city. This is a way to level the playing field, if you will, because it's providing access across your entire city. And it's convenient, and you're not having to wait an hour, hour and a half. It's prompt. Now, we're not going to be perfect. No system is perfect, and I appreciate that you brought up that there are people that, I don't know, they find something and they like to make an issue out of it. But I want you to know from me and the culture that we're creating is I want to hear from them. I want to hear from anybody who's having an issue so we can try to solve it. But we can't be everything for everybody. Okay. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, sir. You've touched on a lot of the questions I had, and Madam Mayor for bringing up the transit from the East Gate to downtown and the general vicinity. That is also equally as important to me. I'm pleased, though, for you for involving the local stakeholders. I think that's really important when we start talking about, I've said it since the beginning, public and private partnerships. I think they're extremely essential to our success and continued growth. So I do appreciate that you're involving the relevant resource providers to keep them in the loop as to what's going on with that. So getting everybody out of their silos, that's huge. So thank you for that. What are some of the demands that would trigger the expansion to the Stagecoach area? So how do you track that? What would be the thing that you would say, we're ready to move forward with this particular option, A or B or something else?
What we've been looking at is travel patterns. We've been looking at the wait times, the travel distances, trying to understand. So Killeen, so when you look at Temple and Killeen, Temple's pretty round and it's pretty efficient. It's kind of a hub and spoke center of downtown. You can get there from anywhere within 6 miles. Killeen is more rectangular. It's bifurcated by the highway. You have a major employer that lets people in and out, which creates congestion at the gates. And so we needed to see that, number one. We also needed to see, well, where are people going? And is there a better way to design the system? And what do the metrics look like? So we've had, now bear in mind, we've only had a couple of months to look at it. So the first month you can almost throw away because people were just trying to figure out how to use the system on both sides, including the driver. So driver, dispatchers, call center people, and then we're trying to train everybody how to use it. So we're literally just in our truly we've had about 30 days to where people are starting to get used to the system. We still don't know enough about those sorts of things. We're starting to see travel patterns. The next time I come, I'm hoping I can show you origin and destination, which is really cool, where it literally shows like an aerial view of where the person started and where their trip wound up. But it starts telling you kind of how people are traveling and where they're traveling. But I think the data, I feel comfortable enough right now to say that we could probably open it up. It's always hard to roll it back, but what we want to do is we want to build trust with the city. We want to build trust with this council. And the best way to build trust is to change all those performance indicators from bad to good, and for you to be hearing that from all stakeholders, businesses and residents alike, that they like the service and they're using the service, right? So we're just starting to see that. I think we're getting there. We have another very important, very exciting, innovative solution that frankly has not been deployed anywhere in the world that we should have by Q1 or Q2, which will create a one app that will broker your trip across all different modes and let you literally watch on your phone as you go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and it will dynamically book those trips for you. But we need that data to really understand and be a good steward of your funds, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to open it up and then go, well, wait a minute, we need another $300,000 or $400,000. Where's the money going to come from? So that's my concern. If you like the concept of expanding, I think we can comfortably do it. But then I'm also hearing now, just now, that maybe there's an alternative solution that you might want to look at next. What I would say is that deploy a base, get some wins, do good for the city, do good by this council, get your confidence level up. Typically, then you look at Saturday service, then you look at Sunday service, and you look at expanding service. So those are all of our options. And there's just a question of, do you want to do a Saturday or Sunday, or do you want to expand first, and the sequence of that? And again, I'm not prepared to have that conversation today. I think we should probably wait a quarter to see how the trend's going, and to make sure that our burn rate, cost-wise, is trending properly. And during that time frame, we can have some measured discussions around, is it A, is it B, is it A and B, or do we want to look at extensions with Fort Cab? I will add that, and as a reminder, that Fort Cab has been an amazing partner. Not only did they step up first to be the guinea pig, they're also contributing $500,000 toward the regional connector. So if there's desire, and I've heard that from their leadership in the past, that they'd like to get their soldiers to entertainment and other things on weekends, then maybe they can come to the table with additional investment. I will say, however, the first 2 years of funding have been secured, but the future funding from Fort Cab is not secured yet. So they're having to go through their chain of command beyond Fort Cavazos to figure out how they're going to program funding moving forward.
Right. So you kind of led into the next part of that, and that's fine. I think that it's still important, while we're not prepared to have the conversation today, that we're thinking about these things
right.
for tomorrow, having a realistic conversation, because then my next point, which you've kind of tapped on, which Councilmember Alvarez has also touched on, was the cost factor, right? So ideally, if we open this up, you mentioned a variance in the maintenance cost. And so one of the things that I would want to know, I'd be curious to know when we get to that point, is what the difference is if we're expanding simply to Stagecoach. I don't know the number of miles, say we did that as an option, but Stagecoach versus the regional from here to Temple. realistically, what would that be a significant increase? I mean, it just doesn't feel like it would be, but I don't know. So I would like to know that difference when we get there. But I appreciate all the information you've provided for us today. Thank you.
Councilmember Alvarez and then Councilmember Boyd. I'm sorry, Councilmember Sagara and then Councilmember Boyd.
Oh, me? Oh, thought he said Alvarez first. All right, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
And when we, as council, we're trying to move with the city in a good direction, we always look at quality of life, which includes, job opportunities, healthcare, education, and transportation, I think plays a huge factor in that. And so I think that this is something big. I don't know if people realize the impact that that's going to have on all our other quality of life issues. I think that that's going to make a tremendous impact, especially people looking to move into this area. My question is, there's certain indicators that we try to keep track of to see, which way the city's moving, what are people's biggest needs. And I don't know if that's something that you can track with this app. So you mentioned, people going from Killeen to Temple, are they going to the hospital? Are they, people in Killeen, are they going shopping? Are they going to school? So if that's something that you can track, that would be great, because that kind of keeps tabs on. It's more important to find the routes that people are really looking for. If they need that more to go to work, I think that will definitely open up a lot right there in the job force. Because we talked to a lot. I was just talking to a young lady. She was 17 years old, and she works at the Denny's. And how do you get to work? My parents dropped me. Well, this is something that could change her world.
Absolutely.
So those are the indicators that I would like to see if that's something that you can track. Is where are the people going?
Absolutely. In talking to Governor Abbott's economic development team, they track where the top 10 reasons that businesses choose to relocate, or when they're looking to move their corporate headquarters or open up a new distribution center, whatever the case may be. One of those top 5, and I'd argue it's in the top 5, one of the top 10, I'd argue it's in the top 5, is access to transportation. So, and workforce. And so it's a really important attribute. I appreciate the comments you made. One of the things, there's many things that we're going to be able to do, and that's why I'm so excited about and one of the knocks that we took was, we're not tech savvy, we're too tech poor, or we had a tech desert. Now we have tremendous capabilities. So we haven't done it yet, but we can blast out customer surveys and incent people while they're riding to use the app and just tell us what's the reason for your trip. We can also tell from origin, destination, keeping everybody's identity private, but just the origin and the destination will tell us where they're going. So we'll get a lot of rich data. I'll come back to the council often, and we'll start sharing that information. But typically across the U.S., we see about 42% are work-related trips. Another 32% are entertainment related. And then there's hospitals and, all different. Everybody uses it for different purposes, but there's usually about a top 10 or 12 across the U.S. that people use the service. It's workforce, it's entertainment, it's quality of life issues. So back to your point. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll be brief. Great presentation. It's good to see the HOT being so innovative and seeing the improvements on listening and learning about the efficiencies, the transparency, and especially the responsible approach to expansion. Thank you for being transparent about that. I know during this last discussion, I was speaking in reference to expansion, but with this presentation, I have a better understanding of why we want to take a measured approach to it to maintain the level of service that exists today. So that's outstanding. And I did just want to say thank you again for what you guys are working on. I see the HOT differently now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cobb or Councilmember Solomon, would you like to speak before we move on?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say I'm just excited what we're doing and how we're moving forward, and just the numbers that you gave, a great presentation, how that we're doing so much more than what we were before. And I'm looking forward to us advancing. I would like to see the South be addressed, but I really like the idea of the mayor also addressing our soldiers and those weekends. I think that's a good we can set that as a priority. I would like to see that. So thank you for for the presentation.
Well, thank you for the feedback, and we appreciate your leadership on our board.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cobb, would you?
Thank you, sir, for the report. You know, the last time I just tore the screens and everything up, I was just going up and down. So I promise, I prepared myself, I looked at everything, and I was happy. And when I don't see constituents or people complaining and seeing some of the benefits from everything, it's a good deal. So thank you for your report. I have nothing to say.
I just want to give a shout out to our staff. We received a prestigious award from the Texas Transit Association, and you have all the big ones, DART, Houston, CAP Metro, San Antonio, and all the rurals, everybody in the state of Texas. And we won an innovation award for outstanding achievement for the implementation of all this technology on Fort Cav. We've already had 4 other military bases that have contacted us wanting to do the same thing on their bases. I think we opened up Pandora's box, and there's some chatter going about wanting to go to Washington, D.C. to see if they can get funding to do something like this worldwide with military families, because it's such an important thing, and it all happened here with the staff. So I appreciate it. We couldn't do it without your support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Quality of life, as you heard from all our council members, are very important for our residents, regardless if it's going to the airport, Stagecoach, Chaparral, or Fort Cavazos soldiers and family members, which is a part of our city. And some of their soldiers and family members live within our city. We're a community of one. One is no greater than the other, but those are things to take under consideration, because this council will make the final decision on where our funding will go in the near future. And I thank you for taking out your time and your staff to do all the research that is needed for us to make that informal decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your vote of confidence. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Madam Secretary.
PR 24027. Receive a presentation regarding the 38th Street wastewater plant upgrades.
Okay. Hey, sir, Mr. Garrett and Mr. McMillan?
Macmillan, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you both for being here. The council, some of the council members had the opportunity to come out and do a tour. I probably did mine in 2018,
That
17.
sounds
something.
right, yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So
Yeah.
we're looking forward to hearing our update. And
Well, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I appreciate that and appreciate your time this afternoon. I've got James McMillan, James with Mead and Hunt, who's our project manager on this. And also Trevor Butler is here, our deputy general manager, here for any questions. I just want to say that this plant, in the scheme of Killeen and the Killeen area, it's the plant for Fort Cavazos, and it receives most of the flow from City of Killeen and all the older north part of Killeen. And the last big capital upgrades were in 2004. We've had some issues that we started looking into, and it's led to what James is going to present today, and I just appreciate your time and consideration of this. So, James?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to brief the council on this project today. And for those of you who are at the tour this afternoon, thank you for that. I hope it was useful and enlightening. This is for the 38th Street wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation project. Wastewater is one of those things you never really think about really until you're presented with it. This project is to essentially to improve operational control of the plant, improve the process, and then quite a few items that need to be rehabilitated due to their age. Many of the parts of the plant that we're talking about were built in 1977 and are going close to 50 years old. Some of them, frankly, are a little bit unsafe, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But all these improvements are going to improve the water quality, the reliability, or enhance the safety of the plant. So this is the plant. As you can see on the screen there, those of you on the tour, we kind of stopped at each one of these areas, and I'll hit each of these in detail and go from there. The first piece of the project is installing a flow meter at the head of the plant where the flow comes in. Right now, the plant can meter flows only as it leaves the plant. So there's about a 2 to 3 hour difference in time as far as the flow is concerned between those 2 points. And so the plant is always playing catch up with adding chemicals and bringing units online and how they treat the water. So this will give them the ability to anticipate what's coming in while they're operating the plant and improve the process and operation of the plant. Aeration basin influence structure. This is to basically to provide better operational control of the aeration basins at the plant. Aeration basins are what do the bulk of the treatment at the plant. It's how most of the solids are taken care of. And so adding this junction box will let them be able to fine tune that process and make it operate a lot better. And there's also a little safety issue. Some of the grading needs to be replaced out there. You can see on this photo there's some corrosion there that needs to be taken care of. Aerobic digesters, so this is one of those 50-year-old pieces of equipment that needs to be replaced. There are mixers that mix the solids up and digest it. And then what we're proposing to do is go in and tear those out, replace those with coarse bubble diffusers, and improve the process so the plant can better maintain a dissolved oxygen concentration. Part of this is adding 4 new blowers to the plant. The blowers, they don't use blowers right now. They use the surface aerators. The blowers will give them the ability to actually fine-tune that dissolved air oxygen concentration. So there's 2 options. One is an older technology that's cheaper and reliable, but it doesn't let them control the process as well. The newer technology, the turbo blowers would, as an additive alternate bid, would let the plant be able to fine-tune the dissolved oxygen concentration, potentially reduce electrical costs there a little bit. Filters, this is a fairly large part of the project. The plant has 4 sand filters right now, which have been kind of the standard technology for the last, 60 years. Newer technology is to put in cloth media filters. This will improve the water quality by reducing the amount of solids and E. coli that can pass through the filters into the effluent stream. And this would also increase the capacity if it's needed in the future. We're proposing to take out 2 sand filters and replace that with 2 cloth media filters, which would still leave 2 sand filters in place. But the 2 new filters would be able to carry the equivalent flow of all the 4 filters that are there right now. The effluent pump station, there's some short circuiting going on. I don't know if this will, oh, there we go. I don't know if that video can really show you what's going on, but what's happening is the flow comes in and doesn't go straight out the plant like it should. This is also a stormwater basin, so flow comes in, kind of mixes in there together, gets stagnant, and that affects the effluent quality of the water going out. It affects the E. coli and some other TSS issues as it goes out. So this would correct that issue, give them a hard pipe connection from the influent to the effluent. A few miscellaneous improvements, adding some effluent boxes on the concrete effluent boxes on the clarifiers. That would allow the plant to be able to clean the weirs on the clarifiers. The algae grows, overflows into it, gets on the sand filters and on the cloth filters. Can cause all kinds of problems. So adding a effluent box at the clarifiers will allow them to clean those weirs. And then there's a slide gate inside the chlorine contact basin. That basin cannot be maintained because it cannot be isolated. And so we're replacing that. This is the biggest part of the project, electrical improvements. So this is a picture of electrical gear that was installed in 1977. And the plant has basically running it with duct tape right now. It's old and it's unsafe, frankly. It's very unsafe. As equipment this age, there's always a very high danger of fire. So those who are on the tour, we had that kind of roped off so you couldn't actually go in there and get in the area where it might be unsafe. But replacing all the equipment, the electrical switchgear, transformers, all that equipment, motor control centers is probably the biggest dollar value of this project. Cost-wise, this just kind of breaks down by areas. You can see the electrical improvements, that's $11 million of the project, and the filters and the digesters together is about another 8 or 10 million. So this whole project together is going to be about 25 to 26 million, and then if the additive alternate is selected, that's another $750,000 on here. Short presentation, but the schedule it's almost done. We'll be ready to bid the documents probably in January, depending on funding. It's all going to depend on when the funding's available. This project will be, we're looking at bidding probably first quarter, second quarter of next year. And then it's going to be in construction for a couple of years. Quick presentation. I'm happy to expand on anything or answer any questions y'all have.
Thank you, sir, for
Yeah, sure.
taking under consideration time, and it was very thorough. Thank you.
Okay.
With that being said, Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the tour. I was a part of that tour along with 3 other council members. I want to first acknowledge the staff that work out there on the site, inside the buildings and outside. This is a sewage treatment or wastewater treatment plant, and so it is a set to endure. So I do appreciate the work that's being done out there. These are much needed improvements. I think the public should know that. There is 50-year-old electrical gear out there. It was stated that it was unsafe. We've seen it. There was red tape taped off, wouldn't allow us to get any closer to what we were seeing. The digester was another issue. We got to walk up there and see what we've seen. Some things you don't want to see, but we've seen where the improvements are needed there. They talked a lot about the concentration of oxygen and how that's done through the blowers and all that stuff. There's a lot of science involved into a lot of stuff that I wouldn't do well explaining at this point. But I will just advocate and say that with the last improvements being done 20 years ago in 2004, the last capital improvements, that it's important that this is something that we're able to get taken care of for the city. For WCID. I did want to point out that I was impressed by the level of security that's out there to maintain that system, to protect it rather, and most importantly, what goes into that system comes out clean, and we've seen on the other side. I was thoroughly impressed to see clear water out of what goes into that system. And so very well running machine operation out there, but the improvements are 100% needed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Adams.
I know it's maybe a little early, but do you know what the split would be for the purchase?
Yeah, it's in the contract, and Killeen is 5 nights, and Fort Cav is 4 nights.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Actually, that's the biggest question because Mr. Boyd has already expressed some of the, I didn't need to go and do the diffuser because I had my share of burn barrels. But I, again, appreciate the tour earlier, and I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the, and I will say I'm glad that you are addressing the electricity. I wish we would have been able to do that a lot sooner. Where is that on the, do you have an idea where would that be on the project schedule? Because it seemed like that might be something should be a little earlier than the right over there with the influent.
We would certainly love for it to be at the very beginning of the project, and it will be. It'll take about a year for the equipment to actually get on site. It takes a long time for that to be fabricated, and so we're looking at about a year from when construction starts to when it's on site and ready to start up.
Okay, and I guess Mr. Cagle, this would be something you come back and for financing if we or CIP when the cost and what have you.
Yes, sir. This would hit the 26 budget, but just to let you know, you don't have to worry about so it's roughly half of that. I guess it was 26, so
Yeah.
Roughly 13 million is ours. Most of that's already worked into the budget because when Harker Heights bought into the South
That's
plant,
right.
they bought out some of our debts. We reserved that to be able to
That's right.
to absorb most of this cost.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sagara.
Thank you, Mayor. That was part of my question. I was going to have the city manager kind of explain the funding, but The other part is, when this is being done, when all the upgrades are being done, what happens to that plant? Is that all diverted, or does it continue, how does it continue to work while all this construction is going on?
Right, yeah, so, and that's something we spent a lot of time talking about at our workshop last week with the district. The plant, every drop of water will still be treated through that plant. So nothing will be diverted or treated elsewhere. There's some things we have to do, shuffle some flow around, stage how we take units offline and bring them back online, in what order and things like that. But the plant will continue operating at its capacity the whole time.
Okay, all right, well, appreciate it.
Sir, thank both of you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Council, with permission to move DS-24-069 Killeen Economic Development Corporation update, can we move it under the presentations? All right, Madam Secretary, we're moving DS-24-069 under presentations now, and from discussion item.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Mr. Connell. Oh, I'm sorry, she's got to read it. I just jumped on that one.
DS 24069, Killeen Economic Development Corporation update.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you. I'm Scott Connell. I'm president of Killeen Economic Development Corporation. We do a quarterly report for y'all to give you an idea of what's going on, what we've been involved with, and we appreciate the opportunity to give you that update. It's just actually been a couple of months since we've been here, so we haven't even we were here in August, so it's been a short time frame, but so we'll hit on a few of the real active issues that we've been working on. If you remember our last presentation, we were working with a group, Blue Acre Development. We had entered into a contract with them to acquire 8 acres in the Killeen Business Park to do some spec buildings for us. The opportunity, about 70% of the projects that we see in the industrial market need an existing building. They don't really have the time to build or the capital for them to do it themselves. They're looking for a lease situation. So it's really critical for us in our mix of marketing to be able to have some developers that are providing that space. So an exciting opportunity. As they were looking at the infrastructure and the layout of the property, they said, we might be able to do, we had planned to potentially do a second site as an option on the back end. They've come to us and said, hey, we'd like to go ahead and take on the 15 plus acres altogether, which would show really on the map, I don't know how to do this, but right there, look at that. I pure guess. There it is. It's those 2 sites along the south end there, to the really kind of the northwest of that is the Dongjin Semichem plant on Ricky Carlisle Drive, and in the middle, and then all the way on the other side is the USAMM facilities that are under construction. So this is that western part of the park. We're finalizing some of this, so the timing of submitting the proposal on this, we're doing some final negotiations on we thought we'd have the final contract done, but we expect to have that agreement put in place in the next couple of weeks on those 15 acres. And the goal there would be for them to begin that design, all of that work. We've already done some site work analysis already, hopefully beat the sale contract time of spring of next year, and really see some construction moving quickly. So the big key is that even during that, we can start to sell off a piece of paper in terms of understanding the design of their facility that they're proposing and what our clients are already. We've already started that relationship already. So exciting for us down the road. One project one project that we did finish up is an agreement with Priority or Urgent Care. Dr. Lincoln Coffee is planning a new clinic on Rancier Avenue, what is the former site of McLeod's Auto, a very high-profile location in North Killeen. As part of that agreement, they'll be taking one of the buildings and renovating that for an urgent care clinic, an opportunity to, Dr. Coffee is resident Killeen and in the emergency care doctor. He works at hospitals in the emergency system. He sees that opportunity for an urgent care service that's really not provided in that area. And we appreciate his interest in taking one of those buildings that will be on that site, investing just under $1 million on renovations on the building and adding new equipment to the space. Plans to hire between 12 and 14 new staff members, some medical, some non-medical, as we all know. The goal is to begin facility renovations early next year and open sometime before the end of 2025. Came to us to talk about how we can assist in that. An analysis based on the jobs and the salaries and all. We looked at a $50,000 incentive to be paid out. Again, if you remember, we do just performance agreements. So they have to do all of the work, complete the renovations, install the equipment, and hire the employees before any payments are made, but structured in 3 different payments of 25, 12, 5, 12, 5. We think it's a great way to help provide some services, all professionals at that level, and really meet a need, not only just the service that he's providing, but also taking advantage of facilities that have just recently been vacated. One of the challenges we have is always having buildings that maybe sat for a while they're waiting for their next use. So the timing of this is really pretty exciting. We're glad to be able to be a part of that process for him and his project. Just a little, I always like to make sure you're up to speed and folks know what's happening from some things that we've announced or underway. USAMM is the top picture there. Last time we were there, they were just disturbing the dirt. Right now, that you can see they've got really all the 2 facilities well underway in construction. We've already been talking to them about when they see this to be completed and when they expect to be in place and grand openings for spring. So we're looking at May of next year to be fully ready for them in their project. So exciting to see in a very high-profile location at Twin Creek and Ricky Carlisle Drive. If you haven't been out there, it'll be a big surprise when you get there. MGC Pure Chemicals is still very well underway in their construction. Most of the steel that you see on the front there that's up high is the front, so they're kind of building towards the front and towards the western part of their site. A lot of construction underway. This is their peak construction period right now for the next 6 months. We do think that by summertime or maybe late summer of next year, they'll be completed of their project. Again, one of the largest single investments we've seen in the community's history. It's a $125 million investment. And then Workspace USA, in partnership with Bell County Glass, they've done all their design work on site. We expect to begin to see that. Remember, that's kind of a business park within a business park. They're taking about 5 acres to create roads internal and having some buildings put on place. In fact, after I submitted this, we just got some graphics on there, so we're real excited about their design and our ability to start really promoting those spaces. If you remember, they're small spaces, so 2 to 10,000 square feet that allows folks small companies that need small space to actually own their facilities. Again, as I mentioned, 70% of folks are looking at rent. Sometimes it's because they're not in a position to own. This creates an opportunity for small businesses to have an equity capacity in their projects. So stay tuned on when we have an actual timing on when that gets going up. So. And then as we talked last time, we completed the purchase or started the first phase of purchase of the Wolf Technology Park property at Stagecoach and 195. We are in the midst of design with our active design with our engineering firm, costing out information, putting together some first run marketing materials. We've already got clients who've expressed some interest. Word's out that we know we've been talking about this a while, so word is on the streets that this might be available for certain types of businesses, and we've already made some proposals, and really great to hear the excitement that we're seeing from the kind of companies we're looking for in that property. So again, it's sites that we don't have right now in terms of size and capabilities, and so we still have work to get it kicked off, hopefully in early next year, in terms of cutting roads in and all that. But still, as they say, development takes longer than you think it is. It's just a lot going on, and so we're very excited about the market response that we're already seeing in terms of some discussions we're in with some clients. So stay tuned. In the last couple of months, just want you to know we've been out the summertime's always a busy time to be on the market and out there talking to clients, and we have seen even in today's election day, that always tends to slow down the economic development process into the fall. So we're excited about this being over with and kicking off into the wintertime. But we still saw some active, a lot of projects that are in various processes of research. This is a research process that they go through, and information back and forth and looking at some things. We did attend Embedded North America in Austin. We're fortunate to have that kind of in our backyard, tied to the semiconductor industry. It's an international show, and it's the first time that's been in the U.S. So it's starting those relationships. Fed Supernova, as you know, defense contractor is an opportunity that we see in a long-term play out. Makes perfect sense with Fort Cavazos, and particularly with the Wolf Technology Park. So we're excited about being able to, and had set up a number of meetings while we're there. So beginning those relationships. And then the AUSA, as we've talked about before, has a huge trade show with it, and critical to kind of be in that conversation with a lot of those companies over time that might need to be in Central Texas. We made a point, and we'll do this, that we are part of Team Texas. It's a statewide group of marketing of communities that go together and market the state. They host a consultant summit every summer. This year they had six firms there. Those are folks who are hired by companies to market, to find locations for their operations. And so we're glad to be able to interact with them. And then as we continue to keep a great relationship with the governor's office, we actually hosted our team. There's a regional group here just in our county and some adjacent counties called Grand Central Texas. That's our AD groups, Temple, Coppers Cove, pretty much from Coppers Cove to Cameron and up into Waco, all of us together. So we coordinated a meeting with our team at the governor's office, got that set up just so that they can hear the updates on what we're all working on, what are the real estate opportunities that they need to know about when they're talking about Texas and working with companies. They know what we have to offer. So key meetings for us in September. Went through a lot there quick. I'm happy to answer any questions and give some updates.
Thank you, sir. Scott, it's always a pleasure to serve with you on KUDC. Your staff is truly amazing, the things that they do on the funding that you do receive from the city of Killeen. You have put it to good use to support the mission and initiative of this council and the future growth of this city, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
With that being said, Councilmember Cobb and then Councilmember Adams.
Good evening. I am so excited. Our future projects and serving with economic development, I've learned a lot, and especially with that tour where I got a chance to go out and see all the spots and land and what we have to offer. It's different when you can visualize than just hearing.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want to say that our greatest wealth is our health. And what we're doing by bringing that clinic and Dr. Coffee over so that we can take care of another side of Killeen, man, I'm so excited. I just can't tell you to know that we're taking care of people. Thank you. And I just enjoy working and knowing that we're doing better for our constituents. So, yes.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We heard the presentation earlier from with the HOP.
Oh, yeah.
And we've talked about this, that infrastructure is a driver of economic development. It's like, are you sharing information or getting information based off of some of the movements and using this as part of our growth process or recruiting process?
Absolutely. As they go along in their process, they ask further and further deep questions, and the big key is how will people get to when it gets down to the workforce scenario, it is how are people going to be able to get to work. That is a key opportunity for us. Transit, you don't see transit in a lot of smaller markets, and so the ability to have that as an option, and specifically the way it's doing here, I've already got notes. I want to make sure that what we hope to be able to do is communicate this and get him in front of some of our plant managers and make sure that they're fully aware of it too.
Thanks. That's good to know. I'm glad you said that, so the public knows that that's, these regional boards that we participate with are working together so we can make Killeen a better.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Big key.
Once again, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Council, as we get ready to go into our work session, we have been in the chamber for an hour and 15 minutes. Do anyone want to take a break? Because we got a real long agenda. Madam Secretary, are you okay to continue? You want to take a break?
Yes, ma'am, I'm good.
All right then. Madam Secretary, work session.
Illmin 24027. Consider minutes of regular city council meeting of October 22nd, 2024. RS 24198. Consider a memorandum resolution authorizing an amendment to the professional services agreement with BGE Incorporated to complete the 30% design of Rancière Avenue replacement and streetscaping improvements project in the amount of $2,037,006.37.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good afternoon, Mr. Revelle.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, and the City Council. This item is an amendment to the existing design services contract that we have with BG&E Incorporated. As you will recall, this project, the Rancière Avenue replacement and streetscaping improvement project, is a part of the capital improvement plan for 2023. It was not funded, but we were able to get some initial funding for design through the TERS back in September 2022. BGE has completed the initial design associated with this project. And that was completed around December 6th of 2022. And then the TERS also increased the funding associated with design from $1 million to $3 million total. Because of this increase, we're able to continue to move this project forward. And so the purpose of this ask is to make an amendment to the existing contract that we have with BGE Incorporated. That amendment is valued at $2,037,006.37. And this project amendment would basically, agreement amendment, but basically allow us to continue to move design forward toward 30%, as well as continue to make sure that we have grant application assistance. As you all know, we've applied for raised grants a couple of times, but we've gotten great feedback, and we believe that each time is allowing us to better position ourselves for a favorable return. This will also allow geotechnical testing and design to continue, all the utility coordination, utility engineering services, wet utilities, dry utilities. Also remember, this project includes undergrounding utilities. All of that design work will be able to continue, as well as completing all of the TxDOT environmental review requirements. As you all know, we do have some TxDOT money associated with this project, and so this project is being done in such a way that it will be TxDOT supported, and then also to allow us to implement or initiate some of the right-of-way acquisition efforts. It is worth noting that to fully design this project and have construction dollars such that the project is ready for construction is going to cost an additional $5 million. Please recall the project limits of Fort Hood Street to 38th Street. So that's about a 2.5 mile limit. And then, what's being proposed in terms of design is really just improving that corridor, as I mentioned, underground utilities, making sure that it's more prominent for pedestrians with, wide sidewalks and shared route paths for bicycles. Also, some one-sided on-street parking, access control, and then theming out areas that fit the downtown and then outside of the downtown. And so, as I mentioned, the proposed schematic design has been accomplished. This will allow us to continue to move the project towards 30% design completion. So staff is recommending that the City Council authorize the execution of this project amendment or professional services agreement amendment in the amount of $2,037,006.37 for the completion of the 30% completion of this project. If there are questions, I myself, as well as Mr. Andrew Zagers, are here and prepared to answer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Zagers. Thank you, Mr. Rebel and your staff for this hard work. Mr. Cagle and your staff, this has been a long time coming on this project, and we're finally here. So thank you so much. Councilmember Segar.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to say, I think, as I was said before, it's exciting. It's an exciting initiative, and I think
Absolutely.
it will definitely go a long way to enhancing the image of our north side. Definitely change that perspective. And
Yes, sir.
it's one thing that, I've advocated ever since I've been here, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition here a little bit. I know that we still, if I understand it right, we still just got to find money, right?
Yes, sir, but we believe we've got a good plan that will help with that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Rebel, Mr. Zagers. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-199. Consider a memorandum resolution authorizing an amendment to Resolution 22090R for airfield improvements at Skylark Field.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wilson.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. A little bit of background on this project. The City Council approved a resolution on July 5th, 2022, authorizing TxDOT Aviation to serve as the agent for airfield improvements at Skylark Field. Additionally, that resolution authorized the payment of the city's required 10% matching funds for the grant, which at the time was estimated to be approximately $298,000 for the construction phase of the project. On April 5th, 2023, the city received a grant from TxDOT in the amount of $23,380 for the design phase of the project. That design has since been completed. The original construction estimate was $2.9 million. However, during the design phase, it was determined that additional areas of the apron and the taxiways needed improvement, and also that due to inflation, construction costs had increased since the original estimate. In conversations back and forth with TxDOT, we were able to get TxDOT to increase the budget and the grant amount by another $2.5 million to accommodate the additional scope and account for the increased costs. The updated project estimate and grant amount is now $5,503,600, with the city's share of that being $550,360. Funding is budgeted and available in the Aviation CIP Fund. The bottom line of this is a needed amount of work at Skylark Field for the payments, and basically we're getting $5.5 million worth of construction work for only $550,000 due to the grants. So the recommendation is that the City Council approve a resolution to authorize the amendment to Resolution 22-090R for airfield improvements at Skylark Field, and to provide the required 10% matching funds, and authorize the city manager to execute any and all required documents, including any and all amendments and amounts set by state and local law. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. There are no questions. Thank you. Yes, sir. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-200. Consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the procurement of equipment, vehicles, and pavement materials for airfield maintenance services in the amount of $381,221.69.
Mr. Provost, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, Madam Mayor, and good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Manager, and citizens of Killeen. So before you use the intergovernmental service agreement for additional equipment, on June 18th, 2024, the City Council approved a resolution allowing the City of Killeen to enter into an intergovernmental service agreement with Fort Cavazos to provide new and expanded airfield maintenance services for Robert Gray Army Airfield and Yoakum Dufresne Army Heliport. The IGSA became effective 1 October 2024. The Aviation Department is seeking authorization to purchase equipment, vehicles, and materials in continuation of a phased plan to meet the requirements of the IGSA, utilizing various cooperative resources in our FY25 budget. The purchase of goods or services made through the cooperative contracts are exempt from the competitive bidding process as stated in Texas Local Government Code, Section 271.02, Subchapter F, and the TLGC, Section 252.022. Utilizing the City of Killeen approved cooperative program, staff reached out to various companies to solicit quotes for equipment. And after reviewing multiple quotes, the Aviation Department has selected equipment that provides the best value and meets the needs of the IGSA contract. We're looking to purchase a tractor with some attachments to it, a big vehicle, and then materials for the pavement. Funding is budgeted and available in the Aviation Capital Improvement Fund and the Aviation Department Infrastructure account. And the recommendation is for the City Council to authorize the procurement of the equipment, vehicles, and payment materials in the amount of $381,221.69, and that the city manager or designee be authorized to execute any and all contract documents in accordance with state and local law. Pending any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Provost. There are no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 24201. Consider a memorandum resolution adopting the 2025 through 2026 state legislative priorities and principles.
Mr. Cagle.
Yes, ma'am. So we've had this agenda item before, and so I'll be brief. We put all of the council, your motion of direction into this, except there was one that didn't apply. There was one talking about the pool levels at our local Corps of Engineer lakes, and legislation is not needed on those. You have to work. It requires working with the Corps of Engineers. It's not legislation. So as always, our number one priority is seeking full reimbursement for veterans exemptions, and then opposing any new ones that are not funded by the state. And there's the one that you added, to advocate for Killeen to have a bullet train station stop. Oops. There we go. And then increase financial assistance for emergency responders and technology. Advocate for increased funding for aquifer storage. Those two were new. And then the one that we've had before is to advocate for clear legislation preventing initiative ordinances that would violate, well, I'm sorry, this is not new, that would violate state or federal law from being placed on the ballot. This was another one that you added at our last meeting. So these are all new. And our guiding principles have not changed. I won't go into those. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Mr. Cagle, the last three, those are items that the council discussed. And
Yes, ma'am.
They weren't added the last time, or this is new because we added to what we already had?
No, it's new because you added it at our last
Okay,
meeting.
all right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, no, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cagle, for that. But one of the things I was reminded to say is that the next time that we go to the Tech Austin. The council would like to go also on those issues and speak. Well, maybe not all of us together, but I know some of the council members
Absolutely.
would like to go and be an advocate for our city. I know I do. So please just, would you let us know when
Yes, ma'am.
next time? Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem has a question for you, sir. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Mr. Cagle, that was great, and I'm really excited about these initiatives that we've got moving forward. So for folks at home that don't know, or folks that are here that aren't really sure how this works with the legislative session that's about to open, what can they expect, or how does it work with updates and getting information as far as where we are with our initiatives? How does that process work for our folks at home?
Well, the first thing that we do is we make sure that our lobbyists have this information, so because there are thousands and thousands of bills that go through, and this gives them the framework they know what's most important to us, but it gives them the framework because you never know what's going to come through the legislature. So they're always watching those things, keeping us informed. And so the first thing, some bills are already being pre-filed, and we're going to have one on our most important priority. And I'll be working with our lobbyists to try to get some of those other things pre-filed as well. But it starts with the pre-filing, and then it starts with committee hearings, and hopefully you get something to the House floor and then to the Senate floor. And it's during those committee hearings that you've got the opportunity to testify. One thing I would encourage the council, if you want to, TML has, I think, 4 different updates that they give during the year. We can do a Zoom call. Anybody that wants to, we'll sign up for those. We could do it in the briefing room. So, but it's watch the headlines, watch the committee, in the committee meetings.
Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cagle. And Ms. Council, Mr. Cagle has the next item. Madam Secretary.
RS 24202, consider a memorandum resolution entering into an interlocal agreement with the Hill Country Transit District to provide for a public transportation system.
Yes, ma'am, Mayor and Council, it's just coincidence. We had the briefing earlier and this item on our agenda. I think in the past, we hadn't been doing these on an annual basis, but we will be doing this every year. This is an interlocal agreement. We don't own our own transportation system, and Hill Country Transit District operates it for us and manages all of the federal funds. We are in the urbanized zone with Killeen, Harker Heights, Copperas Cove, and we have approved funding in our budget of $650,000 for the services, all the services you just heard about earlier. And I don't know why, there we go. So, and so the recommendation is to adopt the interlocal agreement with Hill Country Transit District.
Thank you, sir. No questions for you. No questions.
Thank
Madam
you.
Secretary, thank you.
RS 24203, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing an agreement with Johnson Fitness and Wellness for the purchase and installation of fitness equipment at the Rosa Hereford Community Center in the amount of $96,051.03.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good afternoon, Mr. Murphy.
Good
Is this
afternoon.
your first or second briefing?
This is my first briefing.
All
Madam
right,
Mayor.
let's break you in right. Yay.
Good
Yes,
afternoon to you,
sir.
Madam Mayor and distinguished council members. The Killeen Community Center opened in March 1974 and was renamed the Rosa Harford Community Center in 2020 to honor the city's former councilwoman. The Rosa Harford Community Center and Bob Gilmore Senior Center Wing is currently under renovation and will reopen with new equipment replacing the existing and limited equipment that was 15-plus years old. Quotes have been obtained, all of which were on buy board. Vendors were Marathon Fitness, Fit Supply, Johnson Fitness and Wellness. The lowest responsible quote was from Johnson Fitness and Wellness, buy board contract 665-22. The purchase of fitness equipment will total $96,051.03. The fitness equipment's manufacturer standard warranty encompasses coverage from the frame to where items like headphone jacks, USB ports, and batteries. The length of the warranty varies on specific parts ranging from 1 to 10 years and is based on protecting against manufacturer defects. Here we have some slides of what the proposed fitness center layout will look like. Staff recommends council approve the quote for the purchase of fitness equipment for the Rosa Hartford Community Center and Bob Gilmore Senior Wing from Johnson Fitness and Wellness by board contract 665-22 totaling $96,051.03. If there are any questions.
Thank you so much. You were very detailed, and I like your speed. Pass that on to the rest of the executive directors. It's been a long time, the Rosa Herford Center. Bob Gilmore used to be Bob Gilmore Center. It's much needed for that to be done correctly. And it may have taken some time, but correctly, because it would benefit not only by seniors, but also our youth, an activity, family play. So thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Adams.
I just want to add, Mayor, that the fact that people are saying the fact that we're buying equipment means that, it's going to open soon. So not many people have driven by and seen the work that we still need, but at least it tells them that progress is being made. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Murphy had pointed out that that equipment will be stored, but they just making sure when it's completed, they will move it in ASAP and we can open it up. But we know that when we order things, sometimes there's always a delay in the system. So I thank you, appreciate you for that, looking forward. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that, Councilmember Adams. That was a good lead into the next item. Madam Secretary.
RS 24204. Consider a memorandum resolution authorizing an agreement with Intelligent Interiors Incorporated for the purchase of furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the Rosa Herford Community Center and the Bob Gilmore Senior Wing in the amount of $259,019.91.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes, ma'am. As we said before, the community center opened its doors in March 1974, was renamed in 2020 to Rosa Hartford to honor a former city councilwoman. The Bob Gilmore Senior Center was demolished due to structural concerns, and Park and Recreation announced plans to renovate the Rosa Hartford Community Center. The new design aims to combine both facilities into a single multi-generational center for the community. The Bob Gilmore Senior Wing will feature a spacious billiard room, banquet facilities, a kitchen, a library, a computer lab, and a ceramics and card room. Additionally, it will include pickleball courts and covered outdoor seating. The Rosa Hartford Community Center East Wing will offer a new aerobics room, weight room, updated men's and women's locker rooms, and 2 meeting rooms accessible to seniors as well. The total cost for furniture, fixtures, and installation for the Rosa Hartford Community Center and Bob Gilmore Senior Wing is $259,019.91. We also have a few background schematics of what the layout will look like, but I'm here for any additional questions.
Thank you, sir.
Staff recommends that the City Council approve the purchase of the new furniture, fixtures, and equipment through installation through Intelligent Interiors in an amount of $259,019.91.
Thank you, sir. There are no questions for you. Thank you. Madam Secretary.
RS 24205. Consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the approval of the TML IRP Cyber Liability and Data Breach Response Interlocal Agreement at the estimated cost of $1,875 for fiscal year 2025.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This resolution and the next resolution both fall under the heading of our risk management section of the Human Resources Department. So I'm going to have our risk manager, Mr. Alwin Collado, present these next two items to you this evening. So I just wanted to introduce Mr. Collado to you.
Good afternoon, Ms. McDaniel. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Major, Council, and City Manager. Like Ms. McDaniel says, my name is Alwin Collado, the risk manager, and I'm here to present this to you. Yeah, there we go. All right, as a background, Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool provides Texas municipalities with local government and local government entities with risk management and loss prevention services. The City of Killeen has a well-established relationship with TML IRP, contracting services for workers' compensation, liability, property, and cyber liability insurance. TML IRP has created a new cyber fund, and as a result, we are required to sign an updated cyber liability data breach response interlocal agreement. And this fund will be only for cyber claims only. And the reason for this is removing it as it currently is under the liability portion. And staff recommends authorizing the city manager to sign a cyber liability and data breach response interlocal agreement with TML IRP for a continuous cyber coverage in the amount of approximately $1,875 for FY '25.
Thank you, sir. And for clarity, is that the cyber agreement is just being moved because they changed the way the format, the way they do it. They just moved it out to put it somewhere else.
Yes, ma'am,
And
that is correct.
Okay, Mr. Cagle, really break that down so we can
Yes.
have no misunderstanding.
Yes, ma'am. All cities that have the TML liability insurance are having to do this interlocal agreement. And it's a very low amount of money, but because it's an interlocal agreement, it requires council approval.
Yes, sir, I want to make that clear. All right, thank you for that. There are no questions. Madam Secretary.
RS 24-206, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing an agreement with AED 123 for installation and maintenance of AED medical devices and services at the estimated cost of $62,260.
Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, Council, and City Manager, the City of Killeen is committed to provide a safe environment for our citizens and employees. 3 years ago, the City of Killeen bought 13 automated external defibrillators, though these lack the funding to maintain and replenish any supplies that expired. And these 13 AEDs did not cover all public buildings in the city. Okay. The new AEDs are fully funded under the budget. If you look into your original package, it says a decision package was submitted and approved, but they were actually already funded into the budget. The City of Killeen sought bids to address two major concerns, which is to purchase AEDs to increase coverage in high-traffic public buildings, and requested 11 additional AEDs. And to have a vendor in place to maintain these AEDs and replace any expired items as they occurred. These are the current locations that have AEDs, and these are the proposed locations for the new ones. Staff recommends authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year agreement in the amount of approximately $62,260 with AED 123 LLC for the purchase and maintenance of all AED machines. Pending any questions?
Thank you. Councilmember Adams.
I just have one. I do have a concern. I know for the larger areas, you should have more than one AED. Are we planning on adding? I know this is to add what we have, like the convention center. It's almost realistic. You need 3 in there potentially for the middle, east and west, or north and south sides. I just want, as you go forward, I support this for sure, but as we go forward, we look at the Red Cross and American Heart Association standard for the size, because I think we might need a few more for some of the larger areas.
Yes, sir. We can definitely continue to do that. Right now, we have 2 planned for the initial allocation, sir. Another location that we consider is our airport, which is another high-traffic facility. So we will continue to look and adjust as needed, sir.
And without going too far in the weeds, are these the ones that a layman can use, or they're only for the professional rescuer?
No, they are very, very, very intuitive. They actually, the machines actually talk to and guide you to the process, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for pointing it out, because they're in all of our facilities. If you ever get the opportunity, the ones with high traffic areas, you will get the opportunity to see it. And as our budget increase, that's something that the council can put more funding into in other areas, like outside, maybe at a walking trail or somewhere. But thank you for utilizing the funds that you do have to cover the areas in Killeen. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, sir, for the presentation. I'm looking at the list, the two lists that you gave us, one of current locations and one of proposed locations. So with this purchase, we will have an AED defibrillator at the current locations and the proposed locations, or just proposed?
No, for both.
For both,
Yes, sir.
okay. And I don't know if I missed it on here, or if we do have one, it's just not on the list. Is there one at Lions Club Park, at that recreational facility?
Currently, Lions Club Park has 4, but they are contracted through a separate agreement, sir.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure at least we had some there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. It was a very thorough detail, and most of that was in our package, but thank you so much.
OR 24013, consider an ordinance amending the number of authorized civil service positions for the Killeen Fire Department.
Hello again, Mayor, Council, City Manager.
Welcome back, Mrs. McDaniel. Welcome back.
Thank you. As you know, our civil service system was established in August of 1977, and City Council by ordinance shall prescribe the number of authorizations in each classification for our civil service positions. As you are also aware, we are building an additional fire station, right? So we are before you tonight to request the increase to staffing so that we can staff that new fire station. The Killeen Fire Department civil service staffing currently is 190 fire rescue officers, 37 fire captains, 6 battalion chiefs, 3 deputy chiefs of fire, 2 assistant chiefs of fire. So again, Station 4 will open in the summer of 2025. Additional authorizations are needed to staff this new station, and what we are trying to do is have those new positions through the academies so that we can actually staff it when it opens. So we are proposing an increase of 21 fire rescue officers to make that total 211, and 3 fire captains to make that total 40. Staff recommends the city approve the ordinance amending the total number of authorizations for the fire rescue officer position, increasing authorizations by 21, and for the fire captain position, increasing authorizations by 3 to provide staffing for the newly built Station 4, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for that. Madam City Attorney, and that this may be off the agenda, but I wanted to see if our fire chief could come and give us an update on the testing this weekend. Would that fall in that, or is that off the agenda? Oh,
I think
okay.
it's a little off the
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I just stretched it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Okay, I asked you before I went there. I saw you gave me that look like I know she did. Okay, but I'm back on track. All right, Madam Secretary.
OR 24014, consider an ordinance amending chapters 26 and 31 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Killeen, providing for amendments to the city's signage and subdivision regulations, providing for standards regarding subdivision entry features and subdivision perimeter walls and fences.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. Mr. Rivera, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. As you all know, this item was before you previously, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but the intent is to make sure that this is applied to new subdivisions. It's really, really important, new subdivisions. So if approved, this proposed ordinance would make the following amendments. Basically, we would require masonry perimeter walls, and those are walls, as the second bullet says, brick, stone, precast concrete, along arterial roadways, and at least 6 to 8 feet. And this is different because the last presentation, when we presented this last, it was along arterial roadways and collector roadways. But this one is just limited to arterial roadways. This is an example of a natural stone wall. And this is an example of a precast concrete wall. As we mentioned, the price differences could be 500 linear feet versus 150 linear feet. Here's another example of a precast stone wall, which is actually in Harker Heights. Also, and this is the primary change here, along collector roadways, instead of there just being masonry materials, there could also be what we're calling an enhanced perimeter wall or fence. And basically, as long as it meets the three bullets that's mentioned there, wood privacy fencing with brick or stone columns spaced not more than 100 feet apart, galvanized metal poles, 2 feet deep concrete footings, top rail, and then also the wood shall be stained using oil-based stain, and the HOA would maintain it and restain it as necessary. Again, this is an allowance and a change that was made along the collector roadways to allow this additional fence type. The next slide is basically showing, if you'll notice in that slide there, here at the end there, part of the reason why, you can see that kind of out of sync a little bit, part of the reason why we're saying that it has to be engineered, we want to make sure we don't have occurrences like that. And I've got another slide that kind of speaks to that as well. Part of the reason why we're saying that it needs to be stained, as you can see, these wash areas here, and that can happen over time, especially over the period of 20, 30 years. And then again, this is a living cover example, just I think it's Stone Tree Drive, by the golf course, the old golf course country club. Another example of what can happen if it's not properly engineered over time. So these amendments, again, this standard will allow for wood privacy fencing or metal fencing with wood inserts. Remember in the last conversation, there was concerns about could we do that metal fence with wood inserts? This would allow for that, and this would again only be along collector roadways, as long as the masonry columns are provided every 100 feet, and those masonry columns would have to be engineered design so that we don't have what I just showed you in those previous slides. And then also, the standards do allow for other materials to be used if they meet the intent of the ordinance, to be considered on a case-by-case basis. So in the last conversation, there was concerns about could we use composite materials? Well, there are some composite materials like your high-density plastic made that would be long-serving, but there's other composite materials that may be like rubber that may not be. And so we think on a case, we shouldn't allow that as a by right, but maybe on a case-by-case basis, we can evaluate that and see what makes sense. And so that's what we tried to do there. And so the next few slides kind of show some of the examples of the metal or the wood and metal fencing. Now this would not fully meet our requirements, but this would, because this is the metal and wood fencing with the stone columns. This would be metal fence that, again, we're saying examples of things that would not be allowed as a matter of right. Vinyl, the same thing. Composite, same thing, as I mentioned. And then the subdivision entry features, allowing up to 2 subdivision entry features for new subdivisions, increasing the sign face area allowance from 24 square feet to 50 square feet, and then the height from 6 feet to 16 feet. Also making sure that landscaping is required, and also the mandatory maintenance by the HOA. And this just gives some examples of the signage and with the landscaping. Now, I will say in the ordinance it says that the landscaping in terms of area has to be twice the sign face. We believe that makes sense and that can happen in a lot of instances. But even in cases where there may be some challenges, the ordinance does allow for a portion of a sign or maybe even all of the sign in some instances to be placed in the right-of-way as long as the city engineer approves that. So there's some flexibility in the ordinance that allows for adaptation, even if on the private side there's not enough space in those limited circumstances where that may be the case. And so this was heard by the Planning Commission back in June. They voted to recommend approval. As you all know, consequently, we had a stakeholders meeting at the motion of direction that was made by this council on September the 23rd. We met with the developers and home builders, and then what was expressed at that meeting was the need for more options and really wood fences, and then also some uniformity associated with maintenance. As you all know, following the public hearing that when we last presented this, we were asked to look at material options and to look into whether or not anything could be changed related to the engineered options. We believe we've accomplished both of those tasks and reported our findings associated with that. So staff is recommending approval of the ordinance as presented.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Ravel, for the presentation. Thank you just to you and staff for going back and meeting with the stakeholders. I know that's important. We may not always agree, but I think it's important to at least listen and try to do the best that we can to find some kind of middle road. I know initially when staff looked at this, y'all were looking at straight masonry, and then there was some leniency to allow precast concrete, which I thought was a good idea. Stakeholders really didn't care for that option. They wanted to steer more towards allowing the wood product, which is what we were initially, I think, trying to get away from. But I understand their concerns. Affordability is a factor. I think what y'all have come up with is a good middle road. I think it's farther than I personally would have went, but I think, if everybody can live with it, I think it makes sense. My only concern, and it's something that we hear time and time again, and we talk about customer service, and builders, developers, fence companies, you name it, residents, they are our clients, they're our customers. So my concern is requiring engineered design for fences that are not going to be maintenance responsibility of the city. If we're saying the HOA is going to maintain it, I think it should be up to the HOA whether or not what kind of fence, they're going to be okay with taking on. What I don't want to create is another hoop or delay in permitting process to involve an engineer or an architect to design something that's currently not being required. I mean, I think fence companies right now, it's not required. Am I correct?
Well, as I understood it from our ordinance, if they're in our building official is not here, but as it relates to our ordinance, if there's a stone wall, it's just 4 feet or more, it has to be engineered.
I'm sorry, I guess I should have been more specific. I'm referring specifically to columns. If somebody's putting up a wood fence and it has columns on it, is it currently required for an engineer to design those columns?
Mr. Cagle?
I believe it is if they're more than 4 feet tall. Even a retaining wall that's taller than that, I think anything taller than that requires engineering. I don't know, it's not something that we have commonly.
No, it's not something that we have commonly. And again, part of our intent was to protect against some of those pictures that I showed you where you had stuff that looked like it probably wasn't properly designed.
Sure, I completely understand the intent. And that one that you showed at the golf course is terrible, and that's obviously demonstrates the workmanship there. But again, my concern is we're requiring more and more, which delays a process. And the reason why I was asking this is because I have 6 specific instances recently within the last 6 to 8 months that have had permits issued without engineered drawings required. And this is a 6-foot fence with brick or stone columns. So, again, the aesthetic part, I'm 100% for it. I just don't think that we need to beat certain things down more than we need to, and for the sake of efficiency, and on the customer service aspect of it, I
Sir,
think we
thank you.
can.
Your time is up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Cagle.
Just one thing to remember, at the beginning of the project, the developer is the HOA. The HOA is not turned over until all the houses are built and occupied.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So again, thank you for the presentation, and I do also concur. It's a very interesting point that Councilmember Alvarez raised. But I also just want our citizens to know, because we've gone round and round, we've paused it, just to make sure that we were doing our due diligence and research. This is not something that is just localized to the city of Killeen, right? So as I'm learning, there's a lot going on nationwide. Then also in Texas, House Bill 614 that was passed in January 24. They've been working with HOAs to figure out who's responsible, how do we maintain them, how do we protect this, the aesthetics and the looks over the long term. And so I think that, with us really identifying the maintenance issue, that's the key point here. So for me, the process is really important. So I'm not sure, and just for the public here, when it comes to the fines, the process and procedure as it relates to repairing or the parameters to repair, is that something that is set deeply within our ordinance, or is that something that the HOA, since they are ultimately responsible after development, are they responsible to create those rules for maintenance? Meaning, for example, in Texas is really hot, so when it comes to staining, for example, if we're staining those fences, if they can have the option, 2 to 3 years, 3 to 5 is recommended, but here in Texas, they do say 1 to 3, depending on the weather conditions. So who sets those parameters? Is that set by the developer up front, the HOA, and then who's responsible for making sure they're following those particular rules?
So the HOA generally will have their own requirements and standards, which is probably a little bit more stringent than ours. But we do require that there be an annual evaluation to make sure that there's a need, if there's a need to stain, that staining is done. This ordinance would require that. I would also say that as it relates to maintenance, there is a section in the city ordinance that deals with maintenance of fences. It talks about fences shall not be out of vertical alignment more than a foot from the true vertical. And that's measured from the top of the fence. And then it also talks about any broken and loose and damage, insect damage, missing parts, all of that stuff has to be addressed in the city ordinance. So in those cases there, if something is out of line with that maintenance standard, if that's brought to the city's attention, or if we see it proactively, we would be requiring and expecting that to be addressed.
Yeah. And then for the public, just in general, the HOAs do have a requirement to report their processes, fines, procedures to make sure that everybody's tracking as well. So I appreciate that update. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Sagara.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Ravel. I'm 100% with you on the intent. So I think you guys are doing a great job. And I think that's what we want. We want a city that looks good, and the pictures that you provide, are exactly the things that we're looking for. The reason that last time I had made that motion to kind of table it was just to bring a little bit more clarification, because it's something that I think there was a little bit of confusion, especially coming from the stakeholders. And so I appreciate you guys going out there and meeting with them and trying to figure things out. And every time we come up here, it seems like a little bit more questions are brought up, like you just mentioned about engineer columns. We don't know if that's going to be required or not. And so I think those are kind of the things that we got to figure out. We got to work out. Like I say, I'm for it because I think it's great. But my question is this: we're going to require HOAs to do that. Where is that going to be said that they require that? Do we as a city provide some kind of approval before they do an HOA, making sure that they understand that they have to do that?
Yes, sir.
And
So, yes, sir, as a part of the subdivision and planning process, they are made aware that HOAs are required for all new subdivisions. So that's a part of that. That's a part of their submission process. They have to submit the organization, their organizational structure, how they're set up. And so all of that's done up front and understood. So as a part of that, all the common elements associated with a subdivision, and this would be one of those common elements, is under the purview of the HOA.
Yeah, no, that's good, because
Yes, sir.
I think when they first go up, they look beautiful, but as you show, it doesn't matter what you put in there, in time,
Yes, sir.
it's gonna need some maintenance. And I lived in one that had that all the way around, and, you know, there was all kinds of things, and they started putting things up that didn't even match. I was like, I know we're responsible, but I don't know who's responsible for making sure that that HOA does that, because, you know, I know they have their own group there and stuff, but we just got to make sure we're enforcing that, so.
Yes, sir. So the HOA would be primarily responsible, but if there are some code enforcement related issues or concerns, like the standard that I mentioned, then that's when the city would chime in.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, thank you. Great
Can-
job.
Councilmember Councilmember Boyd, and after her, Mayor Pro Tem want to speak again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good to see this back on the agenda. It does seem a little watered down at this point for me, unfortunately. The question I have is, we pulled off collector roads. Can you kind of speak to how we arrived to that?
Sure. So at the last council meeting, there was a lot of concern expressed about offering more material options. And the challenge with trying to offer more material options in general, and I kind of stated this last time, is that those people, when they have a choice, they choose the lesser option. And so offering that, making that option still leads to the same outcome that we already had that we're trying to change. So we said, okay, knowing that that's a factor, what else could we do that at least make sure that we get the set of the masonry better improved products that have a 30-year life, if you will. And so we thought one way to do that would be to say for loan collectors, let's expand the options beyond masonry, but along arterials, let's keep it just at masonry. And so that was the intent, was trying to battle that push and pull, if you will, and also trying to meet the objective of what we thought we heard from this body.
Sure, thank you for that. And, you know, I do appreciate both staff and our stakeholder community working together on this. Maybe it took a third opportunity or a third time to get it refined, but this is a perfect example, in my opinion, of working together to make an ordinance that works for the city,
Yes,
as well as those who are working to build the city. Thank you.
No, madam, thank you.
Council, taking this under consideration, our top priority is to ensure our comprehensive plan is followed. Working with our developers and our builders, and also when we build our home associations, the leaders there, it's great. So you won't be on this council 5 years from now, some of you, and you may not be here 10. So the future, the way our city look, the future is so, Councilman Boyd down there playing. Wait a minute, Mayor Pro Tem, please finish what you
It
have
was,
to
so
say.
Mike did have a question, thank you, madam. So with regards to the HOAs, they tend to turn over frequently, right? I've noticed this on the other side of the real estate world. So are they required right now, as it stands, to report? Again, I'm just thinking strictly of process when it comes to holding accountable these HOAs for the ordinance that we have in place. Are they required to report turnover and change, so when that company switches over, do they report to the city as it stands? And if not, is that something we can add in there, that they're required to report the change?
I'm gonna ask Wallace if she can answer that question, because I don't know specifically if we have that in our ordinance standard or not.
And if not, just something to think about, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. To address your question specifically about the HOA turnover, typically the way it works is that the HOA is comprised of members of the community, people who actually live in the neighborhood. And then there's a property management company that works with the homeowners association, the body of people who actually live there. So a lot of times what happens is, are you asking about changes to the
HOA
property management company?
Because they have the oversight, right? And when you're talking about the structure, is that correct? I mean, I'm just asking to make sure.
The
for
property
process
management
purposes.
company administers the will of the HOA, basically.
So if there was a defective fence, then subsequently that would be the HOA management would have the final say as to what needs to be done in the time frame, and then verifying that.
The board of the
board
homeowners
would-
association would have the final say, because
The board would
they
have
would
the
have to
final
authorize the
say.
expenditure,
Okay, and the management would ensure that it's done?
that it gets done. That's
Okay,
right.
just to make sure everybody's kind of understanding how that works. So those management companies tend to turn over frequently. I understand the body of the people, but when it comes to that management, whatever their role is in, as it relates to our process, are they required to report? And if we don't know that now, it's fine. If we can just find out, that would be
We
my-
don't currently maintain, because we don't have very many established HOAs that have been in place a long time, we don't currently maintain a great list of management companies, but we're working towards that, and I think that that's something that we can get better at, is making sure that we have great communication with the HOA management companies. And with regard to maintenance, I was gonna address that section, if you're specifically interested in the section that talks about the responsibility for the HOA to maintain, it's in section 26-201, subsection A5, B5, addresses the responsibility of the wood privacy fence, and then subsection C below that, I'm looking on page 3 of the ordinance, subsection C, it also addresses responsibility of the HOA.
Councilmember Alvarez again.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to finish my initial thought, I think, I think the more I think about this, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know who that would be. Civil engineers typically don't get into structural engineering. Normally, that's a different discipline, at least to my knowledge. So, if we're asking, we have some civil engineers here in the room. Normally, they focus on horizontal development. I don't know if it was me building a fence and I needed to get my brick columns engineered, who would I go to?
Sure.
I don't think there's anybody in this area that does that type of engineering discipline.
If I could, Councilman, I'm going to let Mr. Zagers answer your question, but I would say, this is subdivision infrastructure, right? And subdivision infrastructure is designed by, an engineer, whether it's water, stormwater, sanitary, whatever, or roadways, sidewalks, all of that stuff. This is just infrastructure that's designed by the engineer. But I get your point, and we'll let the city engineer do it.
So structural engineering is a branch of civil engineering, just to clarify that. It is additional testing, to get a specialized license. Texas doesn't have that. We have civil engineering license. For the larger fences, the masonry columns, what we consider structures, those are heavy things that usually need a foundation design. A lot of these prefab manufacturers, they will give you, here's our product, but they usually put an exemption on whatever foundation. So you need a geotech engineer. The civil engineer that has that background in the soils and analysis, they can give you a foundation, so we know it's not going to fall over. When you look at that, you want to make sure it's going to stand upright, it's not going to sink, it's not going to slide, or it's not going to topple. So those are the things that we require. Any of those higher structures, retaining walls, same thing, that where we want that engineer to give us that seal that they've looked at it, done the calculations, looked at wind, all those other type of things, that we can feel safe that these things aren't going to fall and potentially hurt someone.
Yeah, I completely understand the intent. But speaking from my own experience, it just, it doesn't seem to make any sense for me. Now, for an entire wall, I get your concern. But for a brick column, it just seems like we're adding more to the process.
We could look at making a typical standard or typical detail. Those are things that we can work on and work towards as well. That may help with that for the smaller things. But the bigger, massive things, that's where we definitely want to get to a certain height limit, where we want to make sure there's an engineer that
Sure,
sign off.
sure. And typically, you know, subdivision level infrastructure is being dedicated to the city for maintenance in perpetuity. Water, sewer mains, you know, drainage, streets. So that is a concern. We want it to be done right because we're on the hook for maintenance in perpetuity forever. But in this case, this specific subdivision level infrastructure that you're referring to, a brick column, is not going to be dedicated to the city. It's going to be dedicated to an HOA. And if the HOA doesn't maintain it and code enforcement goes out there and says, hey, your column is leaning, according to the ordinance, you need to fix it, we're going to send them a notice of violation. They're going to fix it or they're not going to fix it. We're going to send them a fine. And I think, again, so what really are we looking out for the HOA, I guess?
We're looking out for the safety of the public. It is a structure, so we require, anytime someone builds a building, we want to make sure that we have the right design appropriated to it to make sure that it won't fall over, collapse, potentially hurt the public.
I get what you're
So we look at that
saying.
as being a big structure. Now, if it's just looking at a small column, if it's, you know, to a certain height where we know that it's potentially not dangerous, but if you're looking at 6, 8 feet, that's higher than what an average person is, you know, something that has that potential, that's where engineering becomes a requirement.
Right. But I could get a 6-foot shed and put it in my backyard without an engineer.
You could, but someone designed it.
Someone designed it. There you go. So if we're talking about a precast or something like that, it's like, why are we?
Well, the precast will have an engineer stamp. That manufacturer will have that design. They looked at it, they designed it. Now, if they have a typical foundation, they come with it, that this is what you need to do to attach it, to let it sit in the ground. That will be part of their plans. And that's what we're asking, is provide that stuff to us. So we know that, you know, it's not kind of chicken scratch. It's someone actually professional looked at it, look at all the safety calculations. That's what we're requiring.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I just can't support it. So appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Listening to the argument, it does make sense to me to not require engineering for brick columns. Now, if we're talking about retaining walls, I would say there should be consideration there, but not brick columns. I think that may create a further burden than is necessary. I understand the intent, and so a structure that's built that the public has to interface with if they're close enough to it. But I'm actually going to make a motion of direction to strike the requirement of engineering for brick columns.
There are individuals that haven't had the opportunity to speak, but you still want to make the motion of direction?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Well, shouldn't we do that when we get to that action portion?
Yes.
This is just
It's just a work session.
That's correct. It got past me. Well,
So,
I'll wait till we get to that portion.
thank
That's
you.
fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Boyd. Yeah, Mr. Cagle.
Just to that subject of engineering, I would say, yes, developers, home builders are our customers, but who's our end customer? Our end customer is the homeowner. They're paying for this fence. It's in the lot cost. So the argument, well, it's okay if we make it cheap and it falls over. They have to put it back. But they're our end customer. They're the ones we ought to be really looking out for the most. And it's always cheaper to do it right the first time. So if it's installed right the first time, the maintenance is cheaper for our end customers, the homeowners.
I don't disagree, but you know, how
Thank
many?
you.
Sorry.
You got one more time. You can click on your little thing, and y'all can debate this out, because we done beat this down for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Councilmember Alvarez, your last time.
Yes, ma'am. I was just going to say, if we were driving around the city of Killeen and we had fences toppling over and people getting smashed and dying, and this was a huge concern in our city, absolutely, I would agree with you, but I don't know that you can show me one. Show me one person who's filed a claim because a fence fell on them. You know, we can wait, but I don't know of any. I haven't seen any. I drive these streets every day. I've been driving them since I haven't been driving since 1978, but I've been here since 1978, and I can't think of a single moment in my near 46 years here where I've seen offense fall on somebody, or heard it in Killeen Daily Herald that man killed by a brick column that fell on him, or hurt, broke his leg, twisted his ankle, whatever. So, again, I think we're being extra cautious, which is a good thing in some cases, and I agree with the intent. But I think in this specific case, when it comes to the columns themselves, I don't think it's needed. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Now I can speak. Thank you very much. Council, from just listening to you, I know once we get ready to vote on this, a decision has been made just by listening to you, and that's okay, because it's very important that we listen to each other and respect each other's opinion. But as I was saying earlier, 10 and 15 years, 5, 10, 15 years, you're not going to be on this council. How our city look is so important to me, because we spent $300,000 for a comprehensive plan. And it wasn't just our plan, it was the residents' input, it was our stakeholders' input, everyone had a say. And the one thing that I would ask of you when you make your decision on this ordinance, that you take under consideration that this is how our city will look in the future, and make that decision based on your kids, your grandkids, if they would live in this city. Would you be proud when you get in your 60s and 70s and look back on the decision that we as a council have made? Was it for the good of the city and the future growth? Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Madam Secretary.
PH 24046. Hold a public hearing and consider a city-initiated request, case number Z2425, to rezone lots 1 through 6, Block 1 of the Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 4, from B5 Business District to R2 Two-Family Residential District. Lot 1, Block 1 of the Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 5, from B5 Business District to R3F Multifamily Residential District. And Lot 3, Block 2 of Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 4, from B5 to R1 Single Family Residential District. The subject properties are locally addressed as 2012, 2014, 2101, 2103, 2105, 2201, 2203, and 2205 Agate Drive, Killeen, Texas. And this is Mr. Revell's item as well.
Mr. Rivera, I know you was trying to run, but I know they done wore you out with that one. Thank you for your hard work on that one. Mr. Rivera.
Yes, ma'am. This is a city-initiated rezoning request, and so this is the same rhyme and reason that we had before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Just show you the general location, and I'll quickly say, the property in front of you is a quadruplex. That's being considered to be rezoned to R1, to R3F, I mean. And then this property here is a single-family structure, and then properties off the screen in this way are duplexes. So I'll keep going. Okay. That's quick. So, not sure what happened. But again, it's a city-initiated rezoning request. Staff is supporting. Okay, here we go. All notifications were accomplished. Let's see. And we received one response in favor of. And again, we're recommending that the city council will approve this rezoning request.
Thank you very much, Mr. Revelle. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We will now have our citizen comments. Citizens have 4 minutes to speak. Council, you have 1. Mr. Sean Price, you have 4 minutes. Mr. Purser, that's your first warning. You cannot be yelling. First warning. Mr. Price, I apologize. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. He didn't hurt me none. Good evening, council. Just to get myself straight here. So item number 4, or 24-198. We're getting a pretty good deal at $8 million for 2.5, when it normally costs around $11 million a mile for that type of road. So we're getting a great deal out of this, unless if we start having to pay more for the replacement of this road. So we're actually getting a great deal when you look at it, because it could be up to around $20 million for, and, you know, plus, because we got 0.5, we got 2.5. So the average is around $11 million per mile. So we're getting a great deal here. So this is really nice to see that we're seeing some savings, right? Keep our tax base lower our tax base, because you know that's what I'm about. Don't want to spend so much in taxes. So 24-199, still don't understand why we're paying for an elite airfield, or as I like to call it, a hobby field. Yeah, okay, it's got 190 flights that come in and out of there, but it has no passengers other than private passengers. So, but we're as the citizens, we're footing the bill for elite users. So I don't understand why that's the case. Under 24-200, all these pieces of equipment out there, will any of them be required to be underneath the new mandate by 2030 to be all electric? So are we looking just to buy something that's combustible engines, but we're going to have to buy new all-electric vehicles for the airfield? Number 7, it's just that, you know, I would ask that we have free speech back, you know, give the citizens a voice back, allow them to speak freely. Even if it's off topic, just give them their 4 minutes and let them speak. Maybe follow the principle of 551.042. You know, it's your option. You can give it to us, or you can take it away from us.
Sir, please get back on the agenda.
I am on the agenda, madam. I'm being specific to point 202 here. Whereas you were 201. 202 is what is the offset loss? Right? That's my question to that. You know, we got income going in, income going out, so what's the overall gain, benefit, or loss? For 24-203, what is the increase to the user end? Because it's going to overall, what we're spending, we're going to have an overall cost to the end user. So to use the facility is going to cost more money now because we're putting more money into it. So we need to recoup those costs. So we're going to charge the public more money. What would that be? What is the increase? Are the AEDs that we're purchasing, are these covering areas with cardiac response history? Or are we just covering areas because of population environment? So just clarification there. And with the city ordinance, with this fence thing, you know, there's a little thing that I like. It's like, a lawn is nature under totalitarian rule.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Akon,
Well, at least I got the last little statement.
you
out.
have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. There are some excellent points made by council members as far as do we need a structural engineer to certify these columns. Currently, actually, yes, they are required. Any structure over 4 feet, like Mr. Cagle said, it is required to be certified by a professional engineer. I have certified, there are some columns or there's a tower and some walls that were custom made at Heritage Oaks. Those had to be certified by a structural engineer is a subspecialty of civil engineering. but excellent points. At the same time, when have you seen a column fall? I mean, do we really want to spend that much money to require a professional engineer to certify each single, column, which, as long as they're built properly, they're not going to fall. I want to thank staff for taking the time to meet with the stakeholders. We spent quite a long time talking about different issues. That they were very easy to talk to, and they were very available to listen to us. And I'm happy to see the changes they made to the original ordinance. And they do allow wood fencing. I did some research on my own, and I came up with some additional options which are actually in the presentation but currently are not allowed, and specifically the composite fence. If you look at the last two pages of the staff presentation, it's called a composite fence. It's also, there's another name for it, Trex fence. And actually, I'm going to hand you this. Please, can you please hand those? And one of the things the staff brought up, they want fencing that has a life of minimum 30 years. This fencing lasts 50 years. That's considerably longer than what staff is looking for. And it has minimal maintenance. It is used in many other cities and throughout the United States. And I wanted you to consider this as an option. One of the things that in the ordinance, it says that there are several materials that are not permitted unless they're approved by an executive director. And I appreciate that they may possibly be accepted. However, there's no objective standard as to whether they would be accepted or not. If you compare composite fence in the last two pages of the presentation and compare side by side with precast concrete, I like the composite fence option much better as far as aesthetically. And then when you look at the cost to maintain it, and the fact that it actually has a 25-year warranty and it has 50-year life, I think, I don't see why they would not be accepted as an option instead of going case-by-case basis. We have somebody here that's going to go in more depth about this material. They know a lot more than I do. And there's another point I wanted to make. Well, hypothetically speaking, let's say a material is not.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay, thanks.
And I don't think anything's going to change from our original ordinance. Next person is James McChubbin. Good evening, sir. You have 4 minutes. So you have 4 minutes.
I'll keep this really short. I think we had a little presentation, but I know you said it didn't sound like anything would change from what's in the ordinances. I just came down to, show you guys the product that could be an alternative to the wood products.
Madam Secretary, please stop the clock. I want to make a correction. When I say this is not going to make a change, I don't think what we already have in the ordinance, our original ordinance, I think it's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
And it may not stay the same. They may say this, but it has nothing to do with your presentation.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, just clarify that for the record. Madam Secretary, you can start the clock.
Anka did a really good job of kind of explaining, the lifetime and the warranty. After kind of listening to everybody, instead of going through a whole presentation, I thought I would just, kind of reiterate what you were talking about, like the way they look like of those pictures, the wood that kind of wears out. It's just a good alternative to basically a wood product. It doesn't have anything to do with columns. And, okay, yeah, sorry, it's my first council meeting, so a little nervous, but yeah, I guess the reason I'm here is just to see if it could be put in as an alternative to, or instead of an alternative, be put in as a choice, more or less, for the contractor. Because it doesn't have to be stained every so often by the HOA, and yeah, so again, that's really all I got to say. I mean, I don't have much of a presentation unless, you know.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Well, after looking at it, I really think that is better than wood.
Yeah.
It's just, Mr. Purser, you don't have the floor. Please take your seat. I'm still talking to him. Please take your seat, Mr. Purser.
Okay.
I apologize for that,
That's
sir.
all right.
As I was saying, sir, just looking at it, it seems like some really, really stern, good material. Can you elaborate more for the council, since I don't know if there's going to be an option, but I would like for you to go in more detail, please.
Basically, you know, when I see those pictures that they put up earlier, the one benefit to this product is it is going to be cheaper than a precast, right? So as opposed to, I think, $150 a foot, you're looking at $100 a foot. So it's a good option there. And whereas, like you said, when you pass down to the HOAs, you're going to require them to maintain it. And if they don't want to, you know, if you can find them, you can ask them to do their maintenance, and if they don't do it, then the fence stays and looks like it does until they stain it or whatever, right? Whereas this product will stay looking the same for the next 25 to 50 years. So if you get those HOAs that don't want to maintain the product, you're not going to have to actually worry about them staining it every 2 to 3 years, right? So the benefit is that it is a composite made of wood and plastic, and again, Trex will warranty it for 25 years. Trex has been in business since 1996, so they're a good established company. They make decking. A lot of your consumers have heard of the decking that they make. They've made the fence product for like the last 10 to 15 years. And so, again, I just think it's a good alternative. It only comes in 3 colors, so your builder will probably choose that color. Maybe they can choose a consistent color that they can use throughout the city, so that everything looks consistent. And like I said, it just gives them another option so that when they do pass that on to the HOA, that it relieves the HOA too of some of that burden, which relieves some of your citizens of like some of the costs later that they have to come out of pocket to continue to stain and maintain or even replace the fence.
Yes, sir. What is the cost on it?
So the cost installed on 6 foot is around $100 a foot, or I think I heard $150 earlier for the precast. So probably 2/3 the cost. So it will be more than your wood cost, but over the course of 10 to 12 years with replacement and staining, it will be cheaper in the long run over the cost of wood.
Yes, sir. There are some more questions for you, so if you don't mind bearing with me, okay, sir?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Segar.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking over the ordinance, and on this, and you, as you say, it's composite, but in our ordinance, we already have that included, composite. I would be more in favor of, you know, to kind of, you know, we had that conversation about columns. Columns, we're really talking about columns only when they do maybe a wood fence in between. And I would be more in favor of accepting this and then just getting rid of wood completely and then just going with this and concrete, because I like this and I'm 100% for this. It's already in our ordinance that we're considering.
Yeah.
And I think that this would kind of elevate and make it better. But I love the way this looks. I appreciate you bringing it forward. But I think that that would eliminate us having to go back and forth with these columns that we don't know whether it needs engineering or not. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, sir, for bringing this. I actually brought up composite as an option at the last meeting that we had on this, so I'm glad that you brought a Trex representative here. I think that was a specific product that I referenced. I think it's a great product, and I absolutely would love to see it as an option instead of going back to wood. I think, like I said that earlier, I said that it's what we were trying to get away from, but now it's circled back and it's back in there. This makes a lot more sense if what we're trying to accomplish is the aesthetic of wearing wood pickets. You don't have that problem here. So thank you for bringing this back to us.
I am 100% against fences, period. Councilmember Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for providing this as an illustration or example of what's possible in terms of a composite, something we can touch and feel and understand. What I meant by watered down a little bit, I'll clarify, was the fact that we reincorporated the wood product. It's my preference that we go with the composite product, similar to this one, without advertising for free up here publicly. This is one of those things where it's just a better look. It's more durable, a composite material, and I think it's achieving what we're trying to accomplish moving forward with our fencing in particular areas across the city. So that's all I got right now.
Thank you. Council, okay, you went off. Are you speaking now, Councilwoman?
speaking now.
Okay, Cobb.
Sir, this is my first time seeing this. I kind of like it, but I have a question for you. You know, with the mailboxes, the brick mailboxes, the wood mailboxes, with this fencing, is it comparable to do the mailboxes in this fence?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The mailboxes that you have at your houses that are in the fences.
Yeah.
Can this be comparable? Do you have the whole setup, the kit that would go with this to fit in that composite?
What I can say, I'm not exactly sure on what you're asking, but it's very comparable to wood in the sense of the install, like how it cuts, like the customability. Like, you know, I've seen customers build a lattice top, like 1 foot of lattice on top of it out of wood. So it's very customizable. So if you're trying to build in like a mailbox into a section or something, that can be done at time of install by your installer.
Thank you.
If that answers the question.
So you want them to look alike. That makes sense. Thank you, sir, for that. Thank you.
Okay.
The next person we have is Gary Purser. Sir, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Don't even start. I can tell you that I've never been opposed. All of us tonight recognize we've got an issue that's unsightly. I've said that from day one. What I've said from day one also is that we're not ready because there's other options out there. And just don't throw something out there until we get it right. And that's all I've ever said, is ask y'all to get it right. Do I know what's right? No, I don't. Do I have to go find out the answers? Yes, I do. This man drove from north of Dallas today just for that little, and he's never been to a city council meeting. So I want to thank him for coming down from the north side of Dallas, which he'll drive home tonight. But there are other options that we need to explore to make sure we do get it right. That's all I'm asking. Let's get it right. And we've gained some ground. The staff has done some things, and they've changed some things. We've made progress, I guess is what I'm saying. Have we made enough progress? Not for me, in my mind, but we're making progress. And, you know, when I look at the ordinance, I want to read from the ordinance. I highlighted a little bit today. And it says, R panel, U panel, metal fencing, and composite materials shall not be permitted. That's this. Composite materials not permitted unless by the executive director. That's a formula for a nightmare. That's one man's decision. He likes them, he don't like them, whatever. That's not a place that y'all need to be in, and it's not a place I want y'all to put me in. An executive director's decision, that's a horrible place for both of us to be in. And I don't like it one bit. So all I'm saying is just get it right. Let's take time. We have made progress. We've made good progress, but we're not quite there yet. And there's other fence materials out here that, whether it's wrought iron, columns, whatever we're fixing to do, I agree 100%. It's very unsightly what we've got out there, and it needs to be addressed. We all know that. You know, and as I listen here tonight, you know, I heard that the one fence, if you put it back on the slide, it's not at Stone Creek. That's what y'all were told. It's at Stone Creek. It's not at Stone Creek. It's at Roy Reynolds. It's at the old golf course. It's the city fence. It's been there 40 years. It looks like bad. Looks bad. Well, that's a maintenance issue, right? But it's your fence. So it's hard to throw rocks when you live in glass house, is all I can say. And then I hear tonight also about the homeowners association, that the statement was 50% right and 50% wrong, because we can turn over the homeowners association from day one to the homeowners. That wasn't what y'all heard. Y'all heard that we kept control of them. We do, because there's an architectural committee. The builders do not want the homeowners telling them what they can build and can't build. But we can turn it over from day one. So that statement is 50% right, 50% wrong. I make wrong statements all the time. I try not to, but I do. So all I'm asking tonight is to put the brakes on. There's wrought iron fences, there's columns, there's all kind of stuff, and let's get it right. And I appreciate the man driving from North Dallas for a 3 or 4 minute presentation. Then he's going to drive home tonight. And
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Madam Secretary, consent agenda. Council, you have 3 minutes to speak, 3 times seat. Madam Secretary.
MN 24027, RS 24198, RS 24199, RS 24200, RS 24201, RS 24202, RS 24203, RS 24204, RS 24205, RS 24206, OR 24013. The caption of the ordinance reads, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Killeen, Texas, to authorize the number of fire department civil service employees to comply with the provisions of Texas Local Government Code, Section 143.021, providing for a repealer clause, providing for a severability clause, providing for a publication and an effective date. OR 24014. The caption of the ordinance reads, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Killeen, Texas, amending chapters 26 and 31 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Killeen, providing for amendments to the city signage and subdivision regulations, providing for standards regarding subdivision entry features and subdivision perimeter walls and fences, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for a severability clause, providing for a savings clause, providing for publication and an effective date.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda with removal of item number 14, OR 24014, to be voted on separately.
Four.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyd.
Second.
All in, any comments? Any comments? All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Alvarez and Councilmember Boyd, you wanted to pull OR-24-04. Councilmember Alvarez, what is your pleasure?
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve OR 24-014, removing the requirement for engineered for brick columns and adding composite fencing by right.
Councilmember Boyd? Is there a second
need
to
to-
that? Is there a second to the?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no.
Can I get clarification on that?
Councilmember Alvarez, your motion, she want clarification on it.
I just need to, when you're approving an ordinance, this is going to be in the code of ordinances, and so I just need to make real clear what those changes to this ordinance are going to be, so that there's no confusion and we don't actually codify something you didn't mean, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what I'm looking at, I just want to dial it down into the sections and just make sure it's clear. So 26201B is where I see, I'm sorry,
Yeah, BI or B1.
B1, with that last sentence, brick or stone columns shall be designed by a licensed engineer, you're wanting to strike that sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
That was the first part of your motion.
Yes, ma'am.
And the second part of your motion was to to add composite fencing by right. And I was looking at B2. Is that what you're looking at?
Yes.
Where it says alternative fencing materials, including composite materials, shall not be permitted. Are you wanting to just remove composite materials from that list? Is that what you're-
Correct.
Okay. So those two changes to the ordinance would satisfy your motion?
No.
No,
I don't
I'm sorry.
believe so. They would only partially do it.
Okay.
Then he has to decide, is that for both arterials and collectors or just collectors?
Good one. I would say for collectors.
I still need, where are we looking at that? How do you want it to read?
Wallace, do you want to come up here and help us a second?
Okay. So far what I have is we're removing from 26201 A, B1, the last sentence. Brick or stone columns shall be designed by a licensed engineer. But as I understand it, we're still requiring the masonry columns, even if it's a composite fence, or if it's a composite fence, does the requirement for stone columns remain or go away? That's my first question.
All good questions.
Would you repeat that?
My question is, if we're allowing composite fencing along either collectors or arterials or both, would the requirement for the masonry columns remain? Because currently, if it's a wood fence, it has to have masonry columns. So my question is, if it's a composite fence, does the masonry column requirement remain, or does it go away?
In my mind, I would say no, because I agree with brick columns for wood because we were trying to introduce wood back into the ordinance. But if well, I guess that would be a whole nother thing. Then we got to strike wood out of it. Yeah. So what if, take a second stab at it, we change the word wood in the ordinance with composite? So wood is gone.
No masonry columns, though. So we're allowing precast concrete panel on arterials and composite on collectors,
Yes.
and take the masonry columns out of the equation completely.
Makes sense to me.
No wood, just composite or precast. And composite on collectors
Yes.
and precast on arterials.
Correct. Unless the council votes otherwise.
The motion, please.
Mayor, I move to approve OR 24, what was the number? 014, with the removal of 26-201B1. The sentence, brick or stone columns shall be designed by a licensed engineer. And to allow composite fencing material on all collectors and precast on arterials. And removing wood. Yes, sir.
So we're removing the cedar wood pickets, general frame fencing with natural wood inserts, et cetera.
Yes.
And Councilmember Boyd, you second that motion, do you agree?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, Councilwoman Cobb, do you have anything you would like to say?
I just have a question. And the question is, I'm understanding what you're saying, and I get what you're trying to do. Are we making it less expensive, or are we making it more? What are we doing here? Because could we not just simply add it with what we have? Do we have to take out wood? Can we, or just simply add
Yeah,
the
the
Trex
wood
cement?
it's more complicated than that. If you have wood, you have to come with column. It's different things that comes with each type of material.
Right.
And Madam Engineer, would you please break it down to her what she's asking?
You have a spectrum of different types of materials, right? So at one end, you have wood privacy fencing, and at the
Are we
other
making
end.
it easier? That's all I need to know with the composite. 'Cause
I think you're
we can talk about it afterwards.
adding an option.
I mean, I'm for it, but I just wanted to make sure that it's the right thing to do.
Sounds
for
like you're adding
everyone.
one option and removing another one.
That's what it sounds like. Okay.
Councilmember, are you finished, Councilwoman Cobb?
I gotta be.
You still got some time, because you can max out 3 minutes.
No, it's gonna take me a long time, so we're gonna just, I'm for it, but I just wanna make sure that we're not eliminating something that a person really can use, if that's all they got. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't-
I think I understand where you're going.
Yeah.
Then the home association is responsible for the upkeep. And if you live in that home association, you're gonna pay some type of fee if you live in a home association. So it's not just on one person, it's on everybody that live there.
Okay, I just wanted to see the breakdown there. I
Yes,
wasn't seeing the
ma'am.
breakdown.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's where,
It's on you, as long as you.
I got it
you
now,
don't-
because
you haven't
I was
said
thinking it
anything
for
tonight.
every-
You take all the time you want.
I get it, now that I know that it's with subdivision. It's so important, and it's important. It is not just being nice, it's just that I understand, because if I don't understand, then I know the person that's out there in Vero Land is not understanding. And if I'm building a house and I'm moving over to this, I didn't get the part about the subdivision, I understand. I'm moving to this subdivision and we got all of this stuff going on, I wanna make sure I know. And when I vote tonight, I want to know that I'm voting for everyone that's out there watching, that's got their home and need these things done. Because when they ask me tomorrow, I need to be able to explain. And that's the reason why I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not putting something there that's impossible. But I get it, it's not, it's in a subdivision, you still got your choice of wood, you still got the same alternatives, it's just that if you're in a subdivision, or you're in the HOJ. I'm just waiting for you, Ms. Wallace, to shake your head. So it's a fence
It's
around
on the
subdivision.
outside.
Gotcha.
It's the
See,
part
I'm
where it's
thinking it's
near
around
the-
the home, good deal.
No, ma'am.
No,
It's near the
I just
street.
didn't want no trickery up in there. I wanted to make sure that we said these things.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I want to make sure I understand. That's all. I got it. I understand. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
sure
thank you.
You
Yeah,
ready?
I got it now. We can vote.
We have one more question. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a very good question, actually. With the high heat in the state of Texas, do we have any history or know of any experiences where this type of material warps?
Yes, sir. One of the reasons that we didn't elect to include composite as by right in this ordinance is because it was recently brought to my attention a concern with a particular site that used a composite. And when we talk about composite, the term just means it's a blend of materials, right? So it could be a composite of anything.
Right.
So composite could mean plastic composite, it could mean rubber composite. I was recently made aware of a composite fence that's made of recycled rubber. It looks like tires that's actually warping in the sun. It's melting. So that was one of the reasons that we didn't elect to include composite material, because we don't know what it is.
Gotcha. Thank you for that insight. What type of approaches could we take to situations like that to ensure that it gets replaced very quickly should that occur?
It'll become a code enforcement issue to resolve.
So would that kind of become a prioritized code enforcement issue if it's noted, or? And you probably don't have to answer that right now. But
Right.
that,
Our
go
city
ahead.
attorney has a question. Maybe we should.
I didn't want to interrupt this discussion, but before you vote, I would like just to make sure we're all clear on what the ordinance will state. So, but I don't want
Yes,
to
ma'am.
interrupt this discussion. I'm sorry.
Sure.
And to piggyback on Councilmember Boyd, is there a way we can make sure that it's something sturdy like this instead of rubber? I guess that's what.
There you go.
Is there something we can make
Yes,
amendment
Madam
to the
Mayor.
ordinance?
I think one of the reasons that we elected to include composite as a material that's allowed, if approved by the executive director, there are lots of different types of composite fence materials. Some are better quality than others. Some are different types of materials than others. Some are rubber, some are plastic, So I think without specifying a particular brand of composite fencing, it's difficult to know what the durability of that material will be, which is why we sort of propose to have it on a case-by-case basis.
And I understand that, and I can appreciate that approach. But
That's where I was
maybe,
going.
yeah,
That's where I was going.
we've got to have
Absolutely.
some standard to
Right.
ensure we don't have a ton of composite fencing that's subject to warping. Outside, in my opinion, outside of the executive director having the final say on composite material, as a whole, maybe filtering through the different types, and we have specified which ones can be used. I don't know, somebody else can
I
probably
think
pick
that
up
there are
and
new
take on this.
materials that are coming out all the time as well. So, this is, it's sort of a moving target, and just saying composite could mean anything.
Thank you for that, and I digress. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we still have in the ordinance matter, city attorney, that the executive director will approve composite material?
That is in B2, that alternative fencing, and it includes those things, shall not be permitted unless approved by the executive director. of
Okay, I
Development
think
Services.
right there, Councilman Boyd, would be our check and balance, because as long as we stress the staff what kind of material we want the best. I don't think we'll get the rubber.
So it had the composite, no.
I don't know. I don't think nobody know right there.
I think that's pretty important. I'm trying to.
Councilwoman Cobb, you haven't been acknowledged.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry, I got you. I'm
Thank
coming
you.
to you.
Thank you, thank you.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem.
So I just want to, so that we're not completely overthinking this, I just want to make sure that, because there's so many to your point, Ms. Messer, there's so many variables here. I want to remind us that we had a maintenance issue on top of the material issue. But if we've resolved the maintenance issue, meaning that we now have a source that is responsible for maintaining it, then that also would minimize our issues with the material failing, right? Like the staining, the way the wood or rubber, if it's melting, if it's not, we've got now a mechanism that, to Mayor's point, there is a check and a balance, whether it's the executive director, whether it's the HOA, whether it's code enforcement. We did not have that before. So I just want to remind us before we get in the weeds and beat that dead horse, that there is Now we have a mechanism to help us maintain the fences that we did not have before consistently. So thank you.
All right, council, I don't want to do this, but we have gone through that, and according to the governor's standards and expectation, I have the option to stop discussion. We can go on and backwards and forward with this. So everyone has spoken. I just need somebody to call for a vote. Okay, we're not going to do that yet. I'm sorry, city attorney. Let Councilmember I don't know what's going to be different. But
The only question I have and the concern I have is, we had said that, I think the city attorney stated that the composite is listed. The motion will take composite off the list and place it on by right, which means the executive director will not be approving it. So it's going to be whatever composite it is by right, based off the motion that's currently stated.
thank you, Councilmember Adams. So with that being said, council, I'm gonna get the motion correct before we vote. Anybody else but 1 minute little spiel? 1 minute spiel. Councilmember Sagara, you haven't spoken that much either.
My 10-second spiel, and I don't know if we can do this or not, but the guy mentioned age. We're requiring that it lasts at least 15 years. If we were to, and I don't know, this is something that may have to investigate, but if we were to raise that and say it, because it has to last 20 years or 25, according to this lasts 25 years, but maybe raising the, what is it called when the age, what do they call it? Lifespan from 15 to maybe a higher, whatever that is, maybe that'll get us better material, so.
Can we not ask for recycled plastic? This is what type of material this is, if y'all trying to find something. Right, but the type of the material is a recycled type of plastic.
I mean, we could specify a plastic composite and not a rubber composite.
Yes, ma'am. I'm just trying to help y'all out. Because I don't want to, I'm not for fences, but I'm just trying to move this on. All right, now, going back to our city attorney. Now, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if Wallace, are there specific changes do you have that we could read into the record that would be the effect of this motion, of what the ordinance would state, so everybody can be on the same page?
I think so.
Thank you.
All right, let me take a stab at it. Subsection AB1, where we're striking the last sentence. Subsection AB2, where it says privacy fencing, we're removing material between masonry columns. So it'll say privacy fencing shall be comprised of, and we're striking the rest of that last sentence and replacing it with a composite fencing, a plastic composite fencing material. We're striking the following sentence, which states, if a metal frame fence with wood inserts is used, such wood shall be natural in color, et cetera, all the way to the end of that sentence. And then where it says alternative fencing materials, including, we're striking plastic and replacing it with rubber. So alternative fencing materials, including vinyl, rubber, and R panel or U panel metal fencing shall not be permitted unless approved by the executive director. And then beyond that, we would be striking all of subsections 4 and 5, since those address wood fences.
Yes, ma'am. That is correct. All right. All in favor, Madam City Attorney, we good to go?
Yes, thank you.
That's 2 thumbs up, right? Okay. All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Somebody's still undecided.
It's me. Because I'm looking at this and it talks about the rating, that this composite has to withstand 110 miles per hour.
Yes, ma'am.
Safety and 130, and when you go back to composite design, it's gotta withstand.
So,
I'm done.
Council, but you voted, okay. 5 yes, and in opposition is Councilmember Adams, and, Councilmember Solomon, both are in opposition. Okay, can I get this back so we can put this on the secretary desk so we're not accountable for this?
I believe the gentleman left.
Mr. Kager gonna take care of it. I thought it was 4 of these. Ms. Cobb, do you have one? Oh, no, ma'am, no. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. All right, Madam Secretary?
Yes, ma'am. Public hearings?
Yes, ma'am. Public hearing. Council, you have 3 minutes to speak for 3 times each. Madam Secretary.
Yes, ma'am. PH 24046. Hold a public hearing and consider a city-initiated request, case number Z2425, to rezone lots 1 through 6, Block 1 of the Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 4, from B5 Business District to R2 Two-Family Residential District. Lot 1, Block 1 of the Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 5, from B5 Business District to R3F Multifamily Residential District, and Lot 3, Block 2 of Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 4, from B5 Business District to R1 Single Family Residential District. The subject properties are locally addressed as 2012, 2014, 2101, 2103, 2105, 2201, 2203, and 2205 Agate Drive, Killeen, Texas. The caption of the ordinance reads, "An ordinance amending the City of Killeen zoning ordinance by changing the zoning of lots 1 through 6, Block 1 of the Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 4, from B5 Business District to R2 Two-Family Residential District. Lot 1, Block 1 of the Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 5, from B5 Business District to R3F Multifamily Residential District. Lot 3, Block 2 of Willow Ridge Addition, Phase 4, from B5 Business District to R1 Single Family Residential District. Providing a savings clause, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for an effective date."
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Council, Mr. Rebel went through this. Would you like for him to go back through the sides again? All right, thank you. The public hearing is open. Sean Price. Public hearing closed. What's your pleasure, council? I need a motion for PH-24-046. Councilmember
Madam
Adams.
Mayor, I move to approve PH 24-046.
Councilmember Boyd.
Second.
All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Let the record show that Councilmember Councilman Alvarez will not be voting on this. Madam Secretary, our last item is discussion item. Council, you have 3 minutes and to speak 3 times each. Madam Secretary.
DS 24070, discuss nominations and voting procedure for the entity-appointed members of the Board of Directors of the Bell County Tax Appraisal District.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. City Attorney.
Good evening.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. This item is to provide information on the candidates that were nominated by all taxing entities for the Tax Appraisal Board that you'll vote on at your next meeting. As a refresher, the legislature changed the process for appointing directors to the Tax Appraisal District last year. There'll be now a mixture of members that are elected by the public, elected by voters, and then mixed with members who are appointed by the taxing entity election. So all taxing entities were able to nominate up to 5 candidates. The city of Killeen nominated Kenny Wells. Each entity has a certain number of votes based off the percentage of the total tax levy to put towards whichever candidate or candidates they choose. And the city of Killeen has 552 of 5,000 of the total 5,000 of those votes. And the 5 candidates that receive the most votes will be members of the Board of Directors for 2025. So this is the list of candidates that are on the ballot that that all the entities have submitted, including the City of Killeen's entry of Kenny Wells. Just for your information, going down the list here, Joe, there are several of these that are current members, and that may be helpful to you. Joe Burnett is a current member that has been appointed by Bell County, and then Jared Bryan is the current chair, appointed by the smaller entities. Sam Fulcher was appointed by the City of Temple. Marvin Rainwater was appointed by Killeen ISD, and Todd Scott was appointed by Belton ISD in the City of Belton. So those are the candidates you have. You can allocate your 552 votes for the city to one candidate, or separate that out amongst multiple candidates. And so staff is recommending the council approve a resolution at its next meeting to cast a ballot allocating those 552 votes to one or more candidates for the Tax Appraisal District of Bell County Board of Directors for 2025. And I'm here if you have any questions.
There are no questions, Madam Secretary. Can I get a motion to approve? Councilmember Adams.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve.
Mayor Pro Tem.
A second.
All in favor, yes. All opposed, no. Let the record show that Councilmember Alvarez is here, but he stepped out.
That's not switch.
All in favor, yes. All Motion carries 6-0. Can I get a motion to adjourn? I'll stand by.
That was a motion to adjourn, correct?
No, that was
No,
a
not
motion on
yet.
that discussion item.
Oh,
That
I'm
was on
sorry.
that discussion item.
The discussion item isn't on here for action. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that quick enough. I thought we were moving on to it. I thought the motion was to
I
adjourn.
didn't hear adjourn because I didn't ask for that. So do we have to retract that, take that back? We just did a motion. So, and it was approved, so how do we fix that? Because
Someone can move to reconsider that motion if we need to clarify that.
Councilmember Adams,
So whoever-
you made the motion to approve.
No,
He said motion to adjourn, though.
Okay,
My wording
then
was to
it
adjourn.
never was a motion then, because Mayor Pro Tem seconded. So there's no motion.
No motion to approve the item, you're
Yes,
saying?
there's no motion, because if he did a motion to adjourn, and she seconded, then we out of here.
Yes, ma'am.
Then
Yeah,
there's
but
no
if you
motion.
actually move
I want to
to
make sure legal for us to cover us.
Yeah, if the motion was actually to adjourn, we're just clarifying that the mayor, you
Yeah,
restated
I
it, but you didn't.
I didn't hear him. I really thought we was voting on that item. But with that being said, he made a motion, Mayor Pro Tem
To adjourn.
seconded the motion, then we adjourn.
That works for me. Right, I think you restated it believing that he had said something different, but his motion was actually to adjourn is what I believe. Yes.
Yeah, when you do a repeat, you're gonna hear me say, can I get a motion to approve? That was that item. I said that.
Did you actually state motion to adjourn?
See, I don't know. But can we do it one more time so we can be sure?
Madam Mayor.
That's what I'm concerned about. If he didn't do that right, we have a motion out there. I think we should we need to verify that, because there's a motion that is really not a motion.
Okay, if someone wants to do a motion to reconsider
Reconsider, please.
the
And we'll
the
go back
motion,
through it. Just
and then we can just-
reconsider.
I move to reconsider.
Approving, just in case you did it, PH, which one was that? PH what?
DS 24070.
Okay. Retract.
I'm going to retract.
Okay.
I move to
Now,
retract anything
can
that
we
might have
get
been said or done.
yes, ma'am, thank you for the record, because
move
that's
to-
significant to make a motion on something that do not need it. It's a legal matter. That's why we have to correct it.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
And I second again the motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.